Welcome to SteeleWatching, which is a podcast for Remington Steele fans. My name is Sara, and I am not enjoying the Christmas music, which has already started, and by the time you hear this, will be over. But just know that if I survived with my sanity intact, it was a close call.
And I am Eric, and I don't listen to the radio, so I don't have to listen to the much of the Christmas music. I stay out of the stores pretty much, so I don't have to listen to it there. I do have a Christmas playlist, though, on my iTunes.
Glutton for punishment.
Well, but it's not your traditional Christmas playlist. So
fair enough.
It's a classy Christmas.
Alrighty.
Anyway.
Well, we're going to be talking about Season 3, Episode 12, Gourmet Steele. Speaking of classy, see that segue? See how I did that? This episode...
Pretentious Steele.
Yeah, right. Now, I apparently had a brain explosion or something when I typed in the date that this aired, because I've got it first aired on December, and then I've got January 8th. So I'm assuming that January is the correct date, and I, for some reason, typed December because I'm insane. So January 8th, right?
You're correct that it was January. I will withhold judgment on the insane part.
All right, fair enough. So yeah, January 8th, 1985. So we are into 85, midway through the decade now. And it was written by Bob Shane, who is a name I don't think we've seen yet, and directed by Bert Brinkerhoff, who is a name we have seen. So new writer, I think, but familiar director. And so for this one, I went with the TV Guide synopsis. Simple, short, to the point. Steele is mistaken for the restaurant critic he's trying to find, and he is targeted for murder by unsavory, see that pun there? I do like that. Unsavory types steamed up over bad reviews. There's some dad joke puns in that one. So
they didn't get what's that? I can't remember what it is. Umami?
Yeah.
Yeah, they should have gotten that one in there. Anyway.
Yeah, it would have been a good one to put in there. Yeah. So I've got a few things a few comments for this episode when we get there, just on some of the pronunciations in the French and whatnot. But
okay.
So we open at a supposedly classy French restaurant, although the neon sign for me doesn't really.
Say classy?
High class? I don't know. I guess maybe the 80s that was considered classy, but for me it looks more like Eat at Joe's. So I don't know about you, but fancy French restaurant called L'Ornate, which literally means the ornate. So, I mean, I guess if you're trying to say you're fancy, then you just say fancy. Like, it basically just is a restaurant that's called themselves fancy. So that's a...
If you have to advertise that you are something, you may not be that.
Exactly. So that's what Pierre has decided to do, and I guess it's working because we see this couple exit. The man looks like I know that the script I'm going to read the script description. Sorry, I can't talk. I'm going to read the script description of the two people that are exiting because I find it quite amusing, and then I'm going to add in my own 2 cents here. But it says that Pierre Fumar is holding the door open for a departing couple, oozing his thanks with a heavy French accent. The man wears numerous gold chains under his unbuttoned shirt and has a big cigar in his mouth. The woman is all makeup, cleavage, and hairspray. So I do like that. I have my own description reads that the man looks like a dollar store Burt Reynolds. And his date looks appropriately cheap. So,
well, I would say more like a dime store Tom Selleck, but okay.
Oh, yeah, that works too. Yeah. He's got that look, right?
Yes, so, that very popular look from the 80s TV macho guy gonna beat you up type look. Yeah.
Exactly, which makes you wonder why he's dining at L'Ornate, because he looks like the kind of guy that would be more comfortable in like a roadhouse, but sure.
Well, I guess he's trying to impress his friend.
Yeah, his friend. So this is my first question here, because he thanks Pierre for the table and compliments the meatloaf, okay? And then he calls it bao woof, which Pierre corrects him saying boeuf l'ornate. And then he says,
the meatloaf.
The meatloaf. But here's what's confusing, because if I recall correctly, from what I remember in French, meatloaf is pain de viande. And while beef does translate to boeuf, or I don't know, I could be pronouncing that horrifically, so I apologize for that. But boeuf l'ornate would literally just mean beef, the ornate. Mm-hmm. How is that meatloaf?
Hey, I can call anything. I can make meatloaf and say that it's ooby dooby.
I guess it sounds like that's what they're doing, because he calls it meatloaf, but I don't know. That's not how you say meatloaf in French,
but see, by taking an ordinary meatloaf, putting a fancy name on it that means nothing other than meat, but it's in French. But it's in French, so I can charge you ridiculously high prices for it, and then tell you that, oh, this is really classy food,
and then give you teeny tiny amounts of it. It's probably like a little bit even.
Yeah, which is one of the reasons that I don't go out to dinner at restaurants very often. That, plus I'm broke, plus I would rather stay at home and eat my wife's cooking, because for a lot less than it costs me to go to a restaurant, I can eat better and have more.
I would personally, I actually prefer smaller portions, because I find that when they give you these massive portions, I can never finish them. And then I always feel bad because I don't like reheated food. So I usually end up leaving it there. Right. So the smaller portions wouldn't bother me, but the price of the food is insane. Right. Because if you're going to pay that kind of money, you should at least get I wouldn't, I much prefer eating my husband's cooking, because I don't have to do it. It still tastes pretty good.
Well, and that's what I tell my wife all the time, is that we don't go out more often because it's her fault. I enjoy her cooking.
Clearly turning a compliment into an insult.
Maybe I enjoy it a little too much.
So there we are. But beef l'ornate is apparently just meatloaf. So
yes,
in case you're wondering. But Pierre, obviously sensing that his clientele is less than what they normally would want in the restaurant, he sarcastically says that the man is a true gourmet.
And he's too dumb to understand he's just been insulted.
That's kind of the best part about it, is that the insult just flies right over this guy's head, because he's got the wattage of a Zippo lighter, So,
and that's offensive to Zippo lighters.
I mean, they should probably just call this restaurant the restaurant that gets beef done. Slogan I'm going to suggest for l'ornate.
Yeah.
So the man further sort of cements his idiocy by saying ciao to Pierre, which is Italian, and gets in the car. And you can just see Pierre's face. I gotta give props to this actor, because he looks appropriately snobbish and murderous at the same time. Right? He's just sort of standing there, clenching his fists, swearing at this guy in his head until the car is gone. And then he goes back inside the restaurant. He tells the host to lock up. He walks past the waiters, who are apparently his moronic nephews. They're not too bright either. And then into the kitchen, where he encounters a man standing kind of in the shadows. He appears out of the shadows and refers to him as Teos. We learn later that his full name is Teos Stavros. And he runs a Greek restaurant. He holds up a food magazine called Tomorrow's Food and asks him if he saw. Pierre confirms that he saw. I'm going to have some questions about this magazine a little bit later, but
Tomorrow's Food, the food magazine.
It's food done. He turns to see another man approach and addresses him. And I had a bit of trouble with this guy, because his last name is Radicchio, but his first name is Federico, which is very confusing because it sounds similar. And so I couldn't figure out which one it was supposed to be. And then I realized one was his first name and one was his last name. So that makes sense. But it's, I don't know what his parents were thinking.
Fred Radish.
They should have gone with Tom, or Bob or something like that. He's obviously an Italian restaurateur, and with a heavy Italian accent, the man says, first, Dick L'Orange impoverishes us, and then he deceives us. And further compounding the silly French names, Dick L'Orange literally just means Dick the Orange. So, I mean...
I'm sorry. Bad vision.
I didn't make it up, okay? This is...
I know.
But what actually made me kind of giggle at this was, well, Dick L'Orange is a silly name, but also it made me think of, and that movie is escaping me at the moment, but there is an English dish, and I'm not making this up, but there's an English dish called Spotted Dick. Yeah, we've talked about this before, I think. And so I can't remember the movie, but it had Owen Wilson in it. And I think it was set like back in the old South or something like that. And he's at some sort of buffet or in some sort of restaurant. And somebody comes up, some British person comes up behind him and says, Spotted Dick. And he turns around and he's like, I'm just trying to get something to eat. This guy's asking me if I got the clap. So, it made me think of Spotted Dick, which made me think of that movie, which kind of went in a weird direction. Here we are.
Well, I was going to say this later, but I'll go ahead and say it now.
Yeah.
I like the name Dick L'Orange because it is, one, it's obviously fabricated.
Yeah, clearly.
And it's the Dick the Dick portion of the name is, simple, straightforward, non-pretentious, but the L'Orange part, very pretentious, very over the top. And as we find out later, it's very indicative of the attitude of our mystery reviewer, because trying to take down all these pretentious, overpriced, snobbish restaurants who try to sell you the image instead of food,
pretty much.
But at the same time, being practical and down to earth. So I like the name.
I mean, you heard it here, folks. Eric does enjoy a simple, straight, unpretentious dick. So that's he said it. I'm just repeating.
I didn't.
Walked right into it.
Yeah.
Anyway, good times. Tejas tells them that whatever their differences in the past, they've got to band together. He picks up a knife, adding that there's only one answer to such deception. Radicchio protests, saying that it will be difficult to find L'Orange. Pierre says that there are bribes and more forceful methods. Radicchio protests, saying it will be risky, but Pierre brushes it off, saying so is the restaurant business. I don't know about you, but I missed the part where if your restaurant got a bad review, you had to kill that person. Where is that in the business manual?
It's got to be in there somewhere.
Yeah, maybe
because they all know it. They all know
that's true. Maybe they're being managed by the Graykirk Corporation.
Of course, the better solution would just be to go simply buy a bunch of positive reviews to go on TripAdvisor or whatever.
TripAdvisor, sure, on the internet in the 80s.
Why not? Well, or go down to your local TV station that has that review show and just, yes, fantastic. And hit all the stations and just give them the script to read. I mean, it's not like the news stations and the radio stations and the TV stations have ever just taken money to say the same thing over and over again about something and, sold their integrity.
True.
I mean, that would never have happened.
No, of course not.
But it could.
Well, it also strikes me as kind of fun that they go right from this escalates quickly, right?
Oh, yeah.
He's given us a bad review, so now we have to kill him. Wow, okay, that's that's intense. Such is the world of high-priced food. So I guess you live on
food.
Overpriced. Yeah, you live on the edge. So Tejas lifts the knife again and declares that L'Orange must die. Both the other men agree, and it seems like the plan is set. So
yes,
yeah. We have that. That's our opening. And then at the Remington Steele offices, we see Steele. He's sitting at his desk, and he's flirting on the phone with a woman who appears to be called Eloise on the other end. And this is kind of funny. The buzzer goes off as he's trying to make this date with her, and he makes this swiping noise at it, claiming there's a fly in the office. That's going to stop it? How?
Yeah.
And then, of course, he just sort of ducks down even further as the buzzer continues. which is thwarting his attempts to secure a date. And this is another part that kind of confused me, because he suggests to Eloise they make up for the following night with candlelight, a cold bird, and Chardonnay. What does he mean by a cold bird? Wouldn't you want to cook your food?
Oh, well, isn't there a duck dish that is served cold? That's what I seem to recall, and I didn't think anything about it because I seem to recall that there is a duck dish that's served cold.
Well, it shows what I know about fancy food, because I didn't.
Or he could be talking about was it cold duck? Isn't that a beverage? And then Chardonnay, you take the two, you mix them, and you get her really drunk, and then you can.
I don't know. If Pierce Brosnan needs to get a woman drunk in order to, something's wrong with the world, is all I'm saying. Like, there is no justice. So, anyway, Mildred, meanwhile.
Well, on the other hand, he's obviously disappointed her once already, so maybe she's just not going to give him another chance.
That's true.
Anyway.
Mildred lets herself in, and she tells him that his buzzer must be broken. No, it's not. He covers the receiver in annoyance and chastises Mildred, who apologizes, telling him the client is waiting. Then he tells a bit of a white lie.
Wait a second. Does anybody ever knock?
Apparently not.
In the Remington Steele agency? Because, that would be the polite thing to do. Knock before you go in?
Well, they don't knock on doors, period. They just pick the lock. So maybe they just haven't taught Mildred that trick yet.
Anyway, back to where we were.
That's a good point, though. He tells Mildred a little white lie and says one client at a time, implying that he's on the phone with a client. Yeah. Mildred leaves him to finish the call. He confirms the date for tomorrow at 8. Meanwhile, in Laura's office, she's on the phone as well. And she is apparently talking to a man named Bill, trying to remember who he is. So I wonder.
Isn't that such fun when you get a phone call or you run into somebody and they know exactly who you are and you haven't got a clue.
I hate that. I hate that, especially if it's been a few months and you should know. And then you're like, you can't even say, I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name, because you really should know it, right? I actually was watching, I've been rewatching Gilmore Girls lately, which is a kind of a corny show about a mother and daughter. And there's one scene where they go to a wedding, and Luke and Lorelai, the two main characters, it's her parents are renewing their vows, and she can't remember half her relatives. So she devises a plan with Luke, and she says, anytime we find ourselves talking to somebody and I don't remember their name, I'm going to take a sip of my wine and you're going to say, hi, my name is Luke, and you are. So just a thought.
That's assuming that Luke isn't supposed to know this person.
No, he had never met her family at this point. So it was a foolproof plan. It worked very well. Except I guess if you have to drink that much, then you're going to end up wasted at the end of the wedding. But whatever.
It's a new drinking game. We're meeting somebody I don't remember. Drink.
Hope you know your relatives. So yeah, she's talking to a man she apparently met at a party named Bill, but she does not remember who he is. I'm kind of curious as to how he got the number, because obviously, I guess if she had mentioned she works for the Remington Steele agency, then he would know to call her there. But if it doesn't sound like they had too much of a conversation, so she doesn't even remember who he is.
Well, so. Can I make a sexist comment here? You think that would stop a man?
Fair enough. Yeah. So and I'm kind of curious, like, they don't really explain what party it was or when or anything like that. I'm very curious because aside from functions for the agencies, we don't know that she's got that much of a social life. So I wonder where she was when she met Bill.
Well, it could have been some sort of a official function or semi-official function or something like the Film the Society for the Prevention of Film.
We want no more movies made. We're going to prevent it. Yeah. So I don't. Could be.
I'm not even on my medication this week. I should be, but I'm not.
Yeah, I'm assuming it was something agency related because I can't just see her going randomly to a party. Like, where would she go?
Yeah,
we don't know. She's never mentioned friends outside of the agency.
Bernice is gone. Yeah. I mean, the only
Bernice
person
gone.
she's ever gone partying with. So,
yeah. Anyway, but she doesn't remember Bill. And she apologizes. She says there were lots of people. And that all she remembers is that some idiot spilled punch on her dress. There's a pause.
ooh.
Whoops. She laughs. Guess she does remember Bill. Somewhat embarrassed, as he was obviously the idiot. So she backtracks and she says, no, I wouldn't dream of letting you pay for my cleaning bill. And that's when Steele knocks on the door. She tells him to wait a minute. He, of course, doesn't listen because nobody does and lets himself in, telling her the client is waiting.
Knocked.
Yeah, he did knock. He did knock. I don't know. Does she have a buzzer in her office?
Well, I mean, it would be the same buzzer that Steele has, which is on the phone.
Right. Okay. True.
For the intercom function. Yeah.
She's irritated. She tells him that she's on the phone. Goes back to speaking to Bill. This time, though, a little more friendly, right? She's playing to her audience here.
Yes.
He has asked her out to dinner. And the more irritated Steele gets about the client that requires their attention, hello, hypocrite, table of one, the more Laura pretends to actually like Bill, laughing and agreeing to have dinner with him.
Yeah. And I kind of got that written down here, that he can't be bothered to deal with the client because he's working on his love life. But suddenly when the client is somehow magically top priority when Laura is working on her love life. And that's very immature of him.
Well, I mean, it's kind of immature of both of them because I doubt she would have actually agreed to go out with Bill had he not been standing there.
Oh, that's true.
Right? Before he walks in, she seems very much like she wants to get him off the phone. Mm-hmm. She doesn't remember who he is, and she does, and she's like, okay, yeah, he's a moron that spilled champagne on me. Like, she's not enjoying Bill. But then he comes in, and all of a sudden it's, oh, Bill, sure, I'd love to go out with you. So they're both acting like children here.
Oh, yeah.
Surprise. They tend to do that. So she hangs up the phone and pretends to sigh blissfully. Steele asks who the lucky guy is, and she pretends to be nonchalant, saying, oh, I met him at a party. He seems surprised, asking, you go to parties? And she says, yes, of course I go to parties. So, yeah, it's probably for the agency, but he seems dubious, tells her that their client awaits. And in his office, he introduces Laura to Phyllis Lewis, publisher of Tomorrow's Food, and ushers her to take a seat. Phyllis sits in Steele's, beside Steele's desk, and she asks Laura if she's familiar with their magazine. Laura admits she couldn't help but notice their cover story, Fun Things to Do with Whipped Cream.
Is this a food magazine or just exactly what kind of magazine it is?
This is my question, because, it sounds like something Charlotte Knight would think up.
Oh, yeah.
And, they claim to be wanting to... she claims that they want to sort of promote snob eating and this whole culture of exclusivity where food is concerned, yet they're publishing Fun Things to Do with Whipped Cream and having Fleming review hot dogs. It's very jumbled, this magazine. I don't really know who their audience is.
Well, and then we see a shot of the cover.
Yeah. Like Steele.
Yeah. And, Steele says, well, is that model wearing anything under that whipped cream? And
chocolate sauce.
Yeah, chocolate sauce, yes. Well, and I sent you this while we were doing our own note-taking on this. That cover of that magazine, I am almost positive was inspired by the Herb Alpert and Tijuana Brass cover of an album of theirs called Whipped Cream. And it was almost a shot for shot, detail for detail of that album cover.
I'm sure that's not a coincidence. Like, given what we know about.
Not at all.
Yeah. Not a coincidence. But it seems like such a weird, because she goes on to say, Phyllis admonishes Laura, saying that they are living in a new age and you are what you eat is no longer nutritional advice, it's social dictum. Steele labels it snob eating, and she says, exactly. Right? So if they're going for this sort of exclusive, you are what you eat, if you don't eat the right foods, you're not in the cool club with the cool kids, then why the heck would they be doing an article where they cover a model in whipped cream or have one of their employees reviewing really, really hideous looking hot dogs? Like, hot dogs aren't exactly snob eating. So it's.
Well, the whipped cream, I guess you could argue that, the ordinary food eater isn't going to have the wherewithal to cover a woman in whipped cream. This is something that only snobby people could do. I don't know.
Well, all I have to say with regards to that is, you got to be careful because you can get infections. You know, like there's certain. Anyway, like,
yeah,
just don't
anyway
put stuff up there that shouldn't go up there. Anyway, so Phyllis, basically, yeah, she says it's snob eating, and then she says, this is the era of raspberry vinegar, Polish lettuce, mushrooms, ferreted out by Asiatic clergy. I don't know when raspberry vinegar became snobby, because you could buy those at Sobeys, but
yeah, the raspberry vinaigrette dressing, yeah.
Yeah, like that's, I don't know. I don't know when that became snobby, but apparently it did in 1985. But the mushrooms... That's
when it became snobby. Yeah. And then sometime after that, it became not snobby. And so it's, okay, you guys can have it now. Yeah. We're on to something more snobby.
But yeah, the mushrooms ferreted out by Asiatic clergy. That's kind of insane. Laura wonders, what happened to home cooking? And Phyllis insists, well, it's still done in the frumpier homes. Okay. Wow. Okay.
Talk about tone deaf.
No kidding, right? Like,
oh, there's us, and then there's you little people, and stay over there.
She goes on to say that that's why she's here. Her restaurant critic who sets the bar for what is in and what is out is missing. And this is another question I have, because when Steele hears about that and he says Dick LaRange, and Laura asks if he knows him, Steele tells her that he is a restaurant critic who specializes in skewering high establishments, raking them across the coals. And when he talks to Anna later, she says it's because she actually doesn't like this culture of high class food being considered snobbish and exclusive. So why then would they, if they're wanting to create this air of exclusivity about certain types of food, why hire a critic who's going to hate everything?
Well, yeah. But there's a lot of people that say, well, we're writing this for this group, or we're creating this for this group. But when you look at what they actually do, it's like, no, not so much. I don't know. It is kind of a inconsistency, but
yeah, like you would think that if they're trying to create this social victim, or sorry, go ahead.
It could be their comedy column.
Maybe.
Their humor column.
Yeah. But I don't know. It just feels like if they're trying to create this air of snob eating, then you would want to praise the highest priced restaurants in town and the ones that have the longest wait list or whatever it happens to be, and vote down the ones that are not quite as exclusive or whatever that. It's LA. It's not like it's not like you have a shortage of fancy places. Anywhere the celebrities eat is going to be.
Well, it occurs to me that perhaps what we have here is something left over. It could be that when she took over the magazine, Dick LaRange was already established as their in-house restaurant reviewer. Right. And Dick LaRange has such a popular following that they really couldn't afford to get rid of him or her. And so they keep the, kind of the vintage thing going in one corner, and then they've got their how to dress in food for your favorite party type articles. So yeah, it definitely does seem that the magazine is a little bit schizophrenic and
it really
inconsistent in appealing to what they claim they're trying to appeal to, unless they're just maybe they're in the process of changing. She's trying to change them and move them from what they have been to what
Anna
she wants to make them, and it's a slow process or something.
Yeah, like Anna Dix is completely at odds with what the restaurant's mission statement is, right? So whether or not they know that is another thing. Maybe it's cool to just hate on things. I've certainly seen that in no, it's true. I've certainly seen, like, if you look at even in some fandoms and things like that, it's almost popular to be so over it, just not, I'm too cool for this, like too cool for school kind of thing. So yeah, there could be that, right? the more it's kind of like that person that says, "Oh yeah, I listen to this band, but they're like so obscure you've never heard of them." Like, oh, you listen to mainstream music? Okay, well, I guess if you like that sort of thing, that sort of attitude, right? So, yeah, so maybe they're just Anna Dix is kind of doing this for her own reasons, and the magazine's not in on the joke. Could be one of those situations, right? She insists that, Steele points out it's a pseudonym, and she insists that the readers adore him, but his next review is 2 weeks late. They go to press in 3 days. She says if they don't find him, they're out of business. And I got to think that if your magazine is dependent on one specific food reviewer to survive, you might need to retool your magazine because that's not great.
Yeah, but these people in the media and Hollywood and business, it's always this is the one thing that's going to make or break us. And no, but they sell it that way.
True. So Steele asks
everything's a crisis.
Yeah. Steele asks if she called him. She says they don't have his number. Laura asks if she tried going to his house. Well, she doesn't know where he lives. Steele asks if she at least has a publicity photo of him, but she says that he would never allow his picture to be taken because he wants to keep his identity completely secret so that he doesn't get any special treatment when he goes into a restaurant. That part makes sense.
Yeah, which kind of makes his question seem a little bit. He should have thought of that question before he said it.
At least giving a phone number to the magazine you'd think would be a good idea, because even if they don't know your address or whatnot, you could have an unlisted number that is solely and exclusively for the magazine so that they can at least get in touch with you.
You mean a burner phone?
Yeah, well, I guess
like a criminal?
Or a second line. Like,
a second line would be tied to your name, so then you can't hide your identity because somebody would find it out. Somebody'd leak it.
Fair enough. I guess it just seems a little. This is really clandestine for a food reviewer. Laura asks,
more so than for a mystery book author.
That's true. Laura asks if she can give him a tiny hors d'oeuvre of a lead. I do like the food puns. And she tells them that she pays him by money order. They forward it to a P.O. box at Personal Touch. I think the name Personal Touch for a post office box company sounds more like a singles dating site, or yeah.
Come get your box from us. We'll give you the Personal Touch.
Yeah, I don't want it. No, thank you. She says she will pay them anything they ask, adding that the future of the magazine is in her hands. She says he could be sick or dead, or God forbid, working for another magazine.
Yeah. We don't care if he's sick or dead. I mean, that would be terrible, but that would be even worse if they're working for another magazine.
There's also that line makes me think of in the first Harry Potter movie when Hermione says to Ron and Harry, she says something like, we could have gotten killed or worse, expelled. And then Ron's like, you need to sort out your priorities.
Yes.
So yeah, they kind of both shoot each other a look that says this lady is nuts. Yep. But nevertheless, in the Auburn, Laura is leafing through the magazine as Steele asks her about Bill, wanting to know his name, what he does for a living. She tells him it's Smith, and he is a certified public accountant. Steele jokes that it's an honorable profession. They can spend the evening counting debits. Irritated, she says, and credits. Don't know that that's the comeback you wanted to go with there, Laura, but sure. Yeah. They pull into the parking. Sorry.
And then, of course, you missed the part where Steele questions the legitimacy of the name. Bill Smith? Is that like John Smith? John Jones?
I mean, fair enough. It is probably the most average name you could think of, especially for this show where we've got characters named Dick L'Orange and,
and yet, there's somebody out there that's actually named Bill Smith.
Probably, yeah. Sorry, Bill. We apologize for mocking your name. In the script, too, there's an extra couple of lines on his name here because she says Bill Smith, and he makes a comment about the name, and she says, here it is. Where is it? Doesn't have quite the flair of Remington Steele, but then I didn't make up his name. And then when he asks what he does for a living, and she says certified public accountant, And he says, honorable profession, you can spend the evening counting debits. She says, or credits. Admittedly, being a CPA probably isn't as exciting as being a brilliant, fearless private investigator. But then I didn't make up his life either, which is,
yeah.
I'm not sure, like, what insult is she going for here? Because she's the one that created Remington Steele. It's not his fault that she invented it.
Yeah, but I think the comment is meant to suggest that it's not your life either, because I just made it up.
Fair
you
enough,
just fit the suit.
Yeah, it seems odd that she's digging at him here when I guess she's defensive because she's assuming that he's going to think that Bill is boring and that she's boring for dating Bill. Is what I'm assuming that the defensiveness comes from. So they pull into the parking lot at Personal Touch, where Steele does the worst parking job I have ever seen. I know it's a big car, but come on. Like, he's over the line.
Like so many people I see park their cars.
It's me bonkers.
No, the line is, you're supposed to go between the lines. You don't use that as the guide to go on.
We went to we went up to get some errands yesterday, and we parked in a parking lot, and there was a guy in an SUV who was parked over like 4 different spots because he was semi in one spot, but then he pulled up too far, so his one car was in the spot in front of him and to the right, and then his other wheel was in the spot in front of him, and then the rest of us, like, I'm like, what are you doing? There's no snow right now. You can see the lines. How does this happen? How?
People are just they don't care.
Yeah. No.
I want to make sure I've got enough room around my door so I can get in and out. Somebody doesn't get too close to me and maybe scratch the paint on my, my beat up old rat trap. And, it just.
I actually find it's more often the guys, and I'm sorry I'm generalizing here, but the guys that drive the extremely expensive, gigantic Ford F-150s and then don't actually.
People in Beamers. People in Beamers too.
Well, true, but these guys, they'll pick out the most expensive truck and the biggest truck and have the biggest wheels, but then they don't actually use the truck for anything that a truck is supposed to be used for. It's not used for work or hauling or anything. It's just shiny and gigantic and in the middle of the city. So,
well, I don't have one. I've always thought about getting one. There's this little tool that you can get that quickly removes valve stems from, or the little plunger in the middle of a valve stem on a tire. And so when you remove that, it goes real fast. I've always wanted to have one of those. And when I see somebody parking like that, just kind of casually, is anybody watching? And just go down and just all 4 tires, just go all the way around it and just.
That's the dream. That is the dream.
And it's non-destructive. They can't say I vandalized anything. It's a bloody inconvenience, but I didn't vandalize anything.
Oh, that's a great idea.
I'm sorry. Am I vindictive?
A little bit, but no, I like it. Yeah, so they're in the lot. They get out of the Auburn, and Laura says, "Don't tell me you're staying home tonight." And he tells her that he's seeing a fascinating woman named Eloise, who is a stockbroker with an MBA from Harvard. Before I go even further, this is kind of weird. And I don't know if this is in the script. I didn't see it in the script, but he stops and pulls his shoe off. And I guess he's got some sort of pebble in it or something, but I wonder if Brosnan actually just had something in his shoe, because I didn't see any direction in the script for him to stop and remove his shoe, and that's kind of an odd thing to do for no reason.
It's just he maybe they just needed the shot to go on just a little longer, and that's how they came up with to kill a second or two in the shot to make it fit better.
Yeah, it was just interesting because you don't often see, I'm not criticizing it, I think it's kind of interesting because you don't often see those everyday little things that people do that wouldn't be in a television episode because there's no point to it, right? Anything that a character does in a TV episode has relevance to the plot generally. So we often don't see things like a character that scratches their nose or, I don't know, stops to fiddle with their tie or whatever it is, like these little things that we do. So he stops, he takes off his shoe.
Now, can I jump back just a half a tick?
Yeah.
Because in the script, Steele says, he's having dinner with a fascinating woman named Eloise. But before he says she's a stockbroker, in the script, Laura asks stewardess or dental assistant.
Yeah,
and I'm wondering if that's
really
a cheap shot to Cookie.
Yeah, well, and to Steele, because it implies that he doesn't date women. Well, which I guess could kind of be an insult to her because they were together, but like it implies that, he goes for women with the IQ of a peanut. So yeah, I mean, and again, not saying that people who are stewardesses are, but I think it might.
But based on our experience with the Remington Steele dental agency, dental assistants are
Cookie, definitely Cookie, yes, for sure. Yeah, so she's real catty here, like meow, Laura, come on, wow.
Yeah. I mean, this is obviously one of those episodes that is very much in the freeze, and it's not just that it's frozen, it's also very, very hot blowtorch.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, they're definitely not
No.
Definitely not. But it also interesting that here, I'm just going to pull it up again for a second. She makes that comment. Sorry, I accidentally minimized it. And he says MBA from Harvard, whiz at the big board. And she seems a little surprised that he's dating a woman that has an education and is in a profession that like this, right? She says, I didn't realize you were so interested in the big board, as they walk into the personal touch place. So this is, I've got some thoughts about this later, but I just want to put a pin in it there because it's interesting who they're both dating in this episode. So they go inside. She walks up to the clerk, who is the script says he's about 20, and she sort of positions herself so that he can't see Steele, and then adopts a flirty tone, telling him that she's thinking of taking out a box. While she's doing this, he goes over to the P.O. box and begins to pick the lock. So she allows the clerk to see the newspaper ad that she had been holding or been going to put in a single section. She's holding a newspaper, and she says she's thinking about placing an ad. And then she says, but she's having trouble with the words. So she pulls out her ad. And the clerk kind of starts moving his head, trying to get a look at Steele over her shoulder, but she blocks him and then reads, and I've got some issues with her ad too. Sexy, seething femme, longing for your touch, the kind of woman who knows what a man wants and is there with it before he asks. Seething?
Well, hey, it's just an ad for distraction, so she can say anything she wants.
Yeah, but I mean, the definition of seething in the dictionary is filled with or characterized by intense but unexpressed anger.
Well, I think there's another. Hang on, let me seething.
I've never known it to mean anything else. Unless you're talking about liquid, because it can also be.
That's the version of it. Intensely hot, boiling, a seething inferno, constantly moving or active, agitated. So that's the definition I think was being intended here.
I would have picked a different word. Just saying. So she's so that's her ad.
Well, that's what she's got written. I think after this point, once we go and see the cousins or the nephews or whatever they are, and we come back in it, I think she starts just faking it. She's
improvising when they, and the poor guy, because she probably doesn't expect it to take Steele that long to get into the box, right? The poor guy, though, really? he is spellbound. He's just kind of like, oh, okay, sexy seething femme. Then we switch to outside. There's two men watching the box, and they're watching Steele, and they have names in the script. They are named in the script, but they don't actually have their names said that I could tell anywhere in the episode. So I just called them in my notes Minion 1 and Minion 2 because I could not find any. Like I kept waiting for them. They're Lino and what's the other one's name? Raul, yeah. But I don't recall any of their names ever being said. So they're just
I don't think so.
Minion 1 and Minion 2. So that's what I'm going with.
Or thing 1 and thing 2.
Yeah, thing 1 and thing 2. One of them says, Uncle Pierre was right. It was worth the wait. And the other says, he will definitely make them partners now. And it's interesting, too, that the script specifies they are in a two-tone sedan. And I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, I took this car, when I see the car, I assume it's one of those like junkers that got in an accident and they found whatever they could from a junkyard to fix it, and that's why it's 2 colors.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just making sure there aren't any actual cars that are sold looking like that.
Well, I mean, they could be at some low-end street corner shady shyster used car lot. I mean, you might find it like that.
Fair enough.
But not brand new from the factory.
No. Okay.
Well, unless it's being sold as like a custom sport style paint job. It doesn't
really look all that custom or sporty to me. But
it doesn't. But I mean, it's.
And I come from a family that has had a long line of two-tone cars because living where we used to live in a village outside the city, it was not uncommon for you to hit a deer.
Mm-hmm.
Like that happened, and my dad hit one, and my brother hit one. So yeah, they're watching Steele. They think that they clearly think he's L'Orange because he's at the box. And one of the minions says that their uncle will definitely make them partners now. Steele, meanwhile, is opening the P.O. box as the first thug gets out of the car and calls Uncle Pierre on a payphone, telling him that they have found Dick L'Orange. Laura, obviously not expecting this lock-picking job to have gone on for this long, is still giving her list of qualities to the clerk, saying she wants him
just
to
making
be
them up as she goes along.
Strong, silent type. And the funny part is the squeaky, the clerk is speaking in a squeaky voice going, I'm silent. Sure, dude. And then next we see Steele walking up to the Auburn with the contents of the P.O. box. I don't know why Laura just didn't excuse herself and go with him at this point, but I guess maybe she has to finish the scene.
Yeah,
yeah. So he goes up to the Auburn with the contents of the P.O. box in his hand. He sees the man on the phone looking at his car and anticipating questions about the car. He says, yes, it's an Auburn 1936 V8 supercharged. So he's clearly used to people coming up and asking him about the car.
Mm-hmm.
Before he can say anything else, though, both men take out knives, assuming they want the car. Steele asks if they want the entire thing or just the hubcaps.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny. In an attempt to distract them, he throws the mail at them, which, dude, you need that. Literally why you went there.
Well, I mean, you use what you have on hand, so.
True. And then he proceeds to take them both on, getting the knife away from one, punching him before shoving him through the nearby door, which just happened to be there, and taking on the second. Laura, meanwhile, still reading off her list, saying that he must have a black belt in karate, breakdance, and love to discuss Schopenhauer. Wow.
My brother drives one of those.
She smiles and says, oh, you were so close. Meanwhile, Steele is chasing the thugs down the street. They run straight into Laura as she opens the door, jump into their car, and drive off. So Laura, kind of shocked, asks what that was all about, and Steele admits that they came out of nowhere, adding that they must be closer to Dick L'Orange than they think. So he must have gone back for the mail, because when they are back at the office, they're looking through the mail.
Well, he just threw it at him and it hit the ground, so it's not like they grabbed it.
True. Yeah, so they're finding mostly junk, including a package containing last month's cheese of the month shipment, which this made me laugh for 2 reasons. 1, cheese of the month, never not funny. 2, I don't know if you ever watched the show. I've probably mentioned it before. Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman.
I have not watched it. No.
Okay, so the Lois and Clark, the Superman show from the 90s, they're in season 2. They sort of ramp up the will they, won't they with Lois and Clark. And they start dating, but in that attempt to date, he's constantly leaving at the last minute and giving really terrible excuses as to where he's going, right? Because, of course, he's Superman. And so his excuses get progressively worse as the season goes on, to the point where at one point he says that he needed to check his cheese of the month club shipment. So they've Yeah, this made me laugh because I'm like, they have the same cheese of the month club, clearly.
Clearly, yes.
Yeah. Well, in addition to the fact that the same actress plays both Laura's mother and Lois's mother, there's a lot of and James Reed plays Jimmy Olsen's dad. Like there's a lot of similarities from this show and that show, so that made me laugh. So yeah, he last month's cheese of the month, so that's clearly gross. Laura then finds a letter from an eager reader from a week ago. Mildred finds one that is from a passionate admirer, and Steele finds one from a true friend. Laura begins to read it. Dear Dick, you must try more of my dolce, signed Fr. Mildred is confused, but Steele confirms that dolce is Italian sweets. He then asks what passionate admirer says. Mildred reads, I see that feta decrees more garlic, TS. She's told it's Greek cheese, which I would think that most people would know what feta cheese is. That one's not really all that exotic, but I could be wrong.
I don't remember back in the 80s whether it was commonly
that's
known
fair.
or not.
Might not be
amongst non-foodies, but
I just know that you can get a Greek salad at Wendy's and it'll have feta cheese on it. So yeah.
You can get a Greek salad at Wendy's?
Well, you used to be able to. I don't know if they still sell them.
I don't remember that being on the menu. It's been so long since I've been to Wendy's. The Wendy's up here in Alaska, I mean, they're really trying to outdo McDonald's and become number one in terrible customer service.
Yeah. But to be fair, I haven't been inside any one of those types of places like McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King, whatever it is, since 2006. So I could potentially be just misremembering it, but I'm pretty sure that they... Anyway, so then Steele reads, allow me to thicken the sauce. That's his letter from Pierre. Laura astutely points out that it sounds like restaurateurs asking for a second chance. Laura wonders what happened if they didn't get it, and Steele suggests that Phyllis Lewis might recognize the initials. So he goes to talk to her, and Mildred wonders what to do next, adding that she checked her sources, and as far as the government's concerned, Dick Larange wasn't born, hasn't been in the armed services, hasn't paid taxes, and he isn't dead. And Laura's like, well, of course not. He does that under his real name. And Mildred reminds her that they don't know his real name, and Laura realizes that if he's missing, he's also missing under his real name, and runs out the door. Yep. So they both got things that they're going to check into. So then next we see Steele drive the Auburn into a parking lot of a restaurant. This time, thankfully, he parks decently. And a man is sitting at a table with 3 hot dogs in front of him and a camera taking pictures. And this is what I mean. Like, this is some really weird hot dog reviews. What? So, yeah, Phyllis is asking him to look less impressed, and he responds with, you know me, eating is living. I'm going to say a really unpopular opinion here. I hate hot dogs. I hate them. I've never liked them. Yeah, I just...
Seriously?
Yeah, not a fan.
No, I'll admit there's some pretty bad hot dogs out there that you bite into them and it's like mush. But there are some really good hot dogs.
Yeah, I can't say I don't know. I just, even as a kid, because like you'd think kids, the staples for kids, anytime you look at a kid's menu in a restaurant, you've got the same sort of 3, maybe 4 options: hot dog, hamburger, chicken fingers and fries, and maybe a grilled cheese if you're really getting fancy, right? So, but you know, when I grew up, like there was 4 of us. My parents had 4 kids, so hot dogs, hamburger helper, these sort of common staples for dinner, I hated all of it. I did not like it. I was not a fan.
I like hot dogs. I mean, my wife will sometimes fix me just a couple of hot dogs with a little bit of mustard and ketchup on them to throw in my lunch bag to take with me that I eat for lunch cold. But my favorite hot dog, and sad to say we don't have it available up here, is the A&W Coney. Oh, I love that. Oh, I love that.
Is it just that the A&W there doesn't have it, or you don't have A&W?
We don't have A&W.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the nearest one is about 50 miles away. We used to have some here in town, but they were stuck in gas stations.
Oh.
And
weird.
The people that ran those gas stations, let's put it this way, they were not exactly if you went in there to eat a hot dog or anything else from their menu for that matter,
you come out with a MRSA infection?
Yeah, you'd probably, you probably want to watch your stomach and take some of the pink stuff and be prepared to be out of commission for a day or two.
Fair enough.
Anyway.
That does not sound pleasant at all. Yeah.
No. The kind of place you go into and you just get the creeps. It's just kind of
gross. And so I've just never, hot dog's not my thing. But I can eat it. I can eat it if it's charred to like the brink of not being recognizable on a barbecue. Then I can eat it. But that's literally the only way. I'll take a sausage. Too. I enjoy sausages. Fan of sausages, just not hot dogs. So.
No comment.
Yeah. Okay. She introduces Michael Fleming, her nostalgia editor. She shakes his hand and tells him that if they don't find L'Orange, they're all going to be eating on food stamps. The melodrama from this woman. My God.
Yeah.
So Steele hands the letters to Phyllis and tells her that they found these in his post box. Sorry, I skipped something, didn't I? Yeah, no, I didn't. She starts to look at them and Steele grimaces as he watches Fleming take a bite of the hot dog and then pull out a tape recorder and say into it, number 1, fair texture, a bit mushy, a touch too heavy on the glycerin sorbate. Ew.
Now, I, for some reason, just had the urge to look up glycerin sorbate. And I didn't find it.
Interesting.
I did not find it.
Okay, now I got to do it.
I did find was a website. Actually, it's a blogspot blog called RS Skizix. And the title of the blog is Remington Steele Locations from Small Screen to Real Life. And if you go back a few seconds into this scene, you see them pulling into a hot dog stand called Orney's.
Orney's, yeah. I forgot to mention it, but yeah, that was the name.
The real world location. This location is Carney's. They just closed the C and made it an O. And it's at 12601 Ventura Boulevard in Studio City. And then there's another location on Sunset Boulevard in LA. But this one in Studio City is the one used in Gourmet Steele, as determined by the hill and the curb line across the street and Michael Gleason's memory. So real location. So if you're in Los Angeles and you want to hit a Remington Steele real life location, Carney's on Ventura Boulevard. Yep. There you go.
Interesting. I mean, I did look it up too, and I didn't find anything on that specific word, but I did find glycerin and potassium sorbate, and both are ingredients used in foods and apparently personal care products as well. Because it says that a common ingredient in foods and beverages that helps preserve moisture, that's glycerin, prevents sugar crystallization and adds texture. And then potassium sorbate is a preservative that's used to prevent mold, yeast, and fungi growth in foods, drinks, and personal care products. So that it does sort of make sense.
If we haven't ruined your appetite now, nothing will.
Have a delicious hot dog. Yeah. The thing that ruined it for me is his fair texture, a bit mushy. No, thank you.
You like your hot dogs firm, huh?
I'm going to refrain because...
Hey, you did it to me last time. You were the one with all the dirty comments last time, so I get my chance.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. What's funnier about this is that, like, he offers Steele a bite of the same hot dog. Snob eating, really? Yeah.
Some people are just, they're flexible.
Gross. Steele says, no, thank you. Glycerin sorbate irritates my nasal passages, and then turns to Phyllis, asking if she recognizes any initials. She tells him FR might stand for Federico Radicchio of Ristorante Radicchio. Fleming laughs and says L'Orange really knocked his gnocchi, which I'm the pun. The pun is great. Have you ever had gnocchi?
No. I'm not sure what a gnocchi is.
So it's okay. So it's I've had it. It's kind of like it's like pasta but cold.
Okay.
And then I guess it doesn't have to be cold, but I've had it both ways. But it's like a dumpling. No. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to point out that I am not the one doing this anymore.
No, you're not the one doing it this week.
Yeah, it's made with just 3 ingredients: mashed potato, flour, and egg. And basically it's like a dumpling, basically.
Mashed potato, huh?
Yeah, and it can be used like there's pasta. It's like an Italian dumpling.
Okay.
So it can be, yeah. Anyway, it's okay. I was not a huge fan of it, but I did try it once. So he knocked his gnocchi, which is I like. And then she says that TS might stand for Theostavros of the Eye of Zeus. Fleming laughs and says L'Orange said his moussaka tasted like a moose made it. Moussaka. And he points to which I haven't had moussaka, so I can't speak to that one.
Have you had moose?
No, actually, but I have had kangaroo, which I know sounds really weird, but yeah, I have had kangaroo.
Yeah, I've had moose. It's good.
Is it good?
Yeah.
Because I've
had bear. It's good. Had goat. It's good.
Goat is good. I've had goat.
Moose is kind of like very similar to beef.
Okay, fair enough. And then he said, she says that the last one she suggests it could be the most volatile of all, Pierre Fumar of Lornate. Steele remembers his pan roast of Lornate happened around the time he disappeared. He thanks her and goes to leave, just as Fleming takes a bite of number 2. I'm just waiting for the joke. No? Okay.
Sorry. Not even going to go there.
Okay. Takes a bite of hot dog number 2, declaring it fair as Steele kind of walks away. So we don't hear the rest of the review of hot dog number 2.
No.
But at the police station, and this is funny, Laura goes to the missing person's desk. The officer asks if she would like to report somebody missing, and she says not exactly. She's saying she's looking for someone, and she's hoping that someone reported the person she's looking for missing. The officer is rightfully confused by this.
Yeah. Well, if I can figure out what you said, I've got to know. What was that movie? Or was it a TV show? No, it was Home Improvement, where Jill goes off and has a rant kind of like this. And Tim's response is, I'd like to respond to that, but I'm not, or something to the effect that I've got to figure out what you said first.
Yeah, exactly. So she tells him it's hard to explain, and the officer suggests they start with the easy stuff by asking for this person's name. She doesn't know that. He asks for a description. Laura doesn't have that either. He asks if it's a man or a woman. And this is a good point, because I don't think Laura even considered the fact that Dick L'Orange might be a woman, right? Because why would you, right?
Yeah. The name implies a certain gender, yes.
But the fact that he mentions that causes her to kind of go, oh, yeah, I don't know that either, which kind of turns a light bulb on. And he immediately assumes that this is some sort of TV blooper thing or practical joke. Yeah, and Laura asks to know. Like, she's like, fine, look, just tell me who's been reported missing the last 3 weeks. And he's like, you want every single person? She's like, yep, every single one. I'm guessing a city the size of LA.
That's pretty long list.
A lot of, I mean,
yeah.
And also, would that be information? I guess it could be. It is information they could give out because they put out ads for missing people, but still, that's a lot of info to go through.
There would be certain things that they would exclude from that, but yeah,
right.
I mean, just the name, picture, general description.
Missing since the state. Yeah.
But yeah,
that's
the milk carton that they're on.
Yeah. So she's going to somehow she manages to narrow it down, because outside an apartment, Laura sees Steele pull into a parking lot, and he asks her what was so urgent. She tells him that she thinks she's found him. As they go into the building, Steele asks how she's so sure that this man is Dick L'Orange, and Laura corrects him by saying it's not a man, it's a woman, and she's been missing for 16 days. So the timing is right. They reach apartment 305. She knocks on the door. Nobody answers. She knocks. She did knock.
That's true.
And she motions for him to pick the lock, as she tells him that her name is Anna Dix. And Steele connects Dix with Dick L'Orange and says that's pretty thin. She continues that she was born in Orange County, New Jersey in 1963, widowed, and a wonderful cook. Born in 1963? Oh, is 1963. Sorry, my
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I was like, wait, that doesn't make sense. No, she's 63. That's how old she is. My bad.
Although I think the actress who plays her is a little older than that.
I've seen her.
I think I've got it somewhere. I know I looked it up. It's not in my notes. I looked up I looked up Mildred's age. Sorry, my bad. No, disregard. I'm just being silly.
Well, it's Billy Bird who plays her,
Yes.
and I'm fairly certain I've seen her in. Oh, I've seen her in something else, and I'm trying to remember what it was. But yeah, it's.
It actually, yeah, she would have been more than 63 at that time because she was born in 1908.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay.
So she would have been like 70 something.
Yeah. Well, I guess she looks young for her age. So yeah, she's widowed and a wonderful cook. Steele assumes that might be why she doesn't care for elite cooking. Laura says that she tracked down her daughter, who says that she takes them to the best restaurants in town and gets reimbursed. So I guess that part of it would be the biggest hint. The other stuff could be purely coincidental, but the getting reimbursed thing, a widow on a fixed income wouldn't be able to go to places like Lornate unless they had some other way of getting there. So Steele gets the door open and they go into the apartment. They look around and they both come across copies of Tomorrow's Food. Steele finds a picture of the woman with her grandchildren, and they eventually find the kitchen. When he turns the light on, they see that the kitchen has been completely tossed. So they start looking around the kitchen. Steele opens the fridge to find wilted vegetables, and Laura opens the cabinet and finds a cat inside. How the heck did the cat get in there? I'm assuming that Anna didn't put the cat in the cabinet because unless she's only going out for a few minutes, that cat would have to do its business somewhere.
Yeah. The only thing I could think of really didn't quite make sense because I know there's some cabinets that have self-closing mechanisms. So, conceivably the cat could have gotten in either by pulling the door open or it having been open when the cat jumped in and then somehow in the process knocked it from its locked open position to a position where that self-closing mechanism would work. But yeah, it's kind of or either that or somebody whoever was tossing in a place, this cat's a pain in the rear end, scratching me, whatever, grabs the cat, throws it in the cabinet and shuts it to get it out of their way.
Yeah, it could be. But then you'd think that they too would realize that if the cat's there, somebody has to be feeding it.
Well, at the time that they were there, maybe not. Maybe that was, they knew that she was still there. She hadn't gone into hiding yet. Who knows?
Fair enough. So Laura wonders who's feeding the cat. Cute kitty cat. Never appears again, much like Nero. And Steele opens the fridge back up again to find a can of cat food that has been opened and then stored in the fridge with like an elastic around the top. So they feed the cat a little bit of it, make themselves at home, obviously waiting for Anna to return. Laura, we see, is looking at a kid's board book while Steele watches out the window. Laura attempts with a false casual tone to ask about Eloise. And Steele says he hasn't been seeing her long, about a month or two. And when Laura says they must be very close, he admits that he hasn't really seen much of her. She asks if she's an independent woman, and Steele says she is. He tells her that she and Laura would have a lot in common. So more time passes, and this time we see Steele in the chair playing a small game and Laura looking out the window. He asks what Bill is like. Laura admits to not knowing him that well. He asks if he and Bill would have anything in common, and Laura thinks about it and then says, don't think so. He's different. Steele wonders in what way, and Laura tells him that he seems more open and in touch with his feelings, adding that he has no tacky mystery about him. Ouch.
Yeah.
Like, ouch. And this is probably one of the few times I'm going to say this ever about Steele, but he here is behaving far more maturely than she is, in the sense that he is honest about Eloise and says, like, hey, actually, I think you two would have a lot in common. And yeah, if he is jealous, he's not outwardly displaying it, at least in this particular scene. And then she just kind of turns around and hits him with the tacky mystery. That's kind of rude.
Yeah, it's definitely. Yeah. I mean, we had the freeze early on, but this is different than that. This is, there's either somebody has misinterpreted the freeze as meaning they're at odds and there's tension, or there's something that we're not privy to that is behind it to explain this animosity.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because there hasn't really been any tension up until like aside from the fact that they are dating other people, which, as you said, the freeze isn't new. They've been in the
ostensibly. This is the first time we've ever, I think, since the freeze that we've actually seen a direct reference to an actual real person that they're dating. I think there have been some references to made up people. I'm dating my imagination. But
no, I just mean aside from the fact that like you're right. The freeze isn't new. They've been in the freeze for a while now, and I don't know. It just feels like they went out of their way to create tension where there wasn't any. I mean, you would think that the tension in and of itself would be that they're seeing other people.
Or they're not seeing each other.
Yeah. Because you had the episode prior where Laura was panting all over Butch Bemis. Like,
maybe Steele's still sore from that. I don't know.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's Laura that's taking the cheap shots here with the tacky mystery comment. And that to me feels really, really below the belt in the sense that she knows she knows the truth now. Mm-hmm. And she knows that he doesn't know who he is. It's not a tacky mystery. He literally has no idea where he came from. That's kind of a mean thing to poke at, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely unfair.
So, yeah, before he can say anything, though, he hears something, grabs her, puts his hand over her mouth, and pulls her to the side of the wall, saying it's nothing personal. The window opens and Anna Dix climbs in. She looks around and calls out for Princess, which is obviously the cat, which I guess appropriate name for a cat because they do tend to believe they're royalty. So
yeah.
They listen and the woman goes into the kitchen. They follow her in there. She opens the fridge, still in darkness, and takes out the can of cat food just as Laura turns on the lights. She yelps in fright, grabs a rolling pin, and says, "You people are ruthless. First you try to kill me with a stove, then with your sauces." I love that that's the order she puts it in. It's like the actual murder attempt goes first, but after that it's just the food's so bad that
yeah.
Laura insists they're there to help. Steele adds that they're private investigators, telling her that she's Laura Holt, he's Remington Steele. Laura's holding up her ID to prove it, and she assures her that her identity is safe with them. There's kind of a beat where she still looks a little scared, but hopeful, as she says it is, and Laura nods and she relaxes, asking if they would like a cup of tea. She gets the kettle out. Laura notices a matchbook with the logo for Laurinate on it and shows it to Steele. So, out in the living room, they're drinking their tea. Steele asks if she knows who's trying to kill her, and she says that one night she was heading back from her box at Personal Touch. She thought someone was following her and was afraid she'd blown her cover. So she got into her house, put her groceries away, and went into the living room when her kitchen blew up behind her. That would be rather terrifying.
Yeah.
She tells him that that's all she knows, and after that she went into hiding, not wanting to lead them to her family. Steele wonders where she's been staying the whole time. She gets a bit cagey about this, saying, with a friend at a senior's home, adding that she can't keep doing that. She needs to get some sleep. Wow. Anna Dix. Oh, yeah. You go, girlfriend. And I love the fact that that line did not need to be there.
No.
There's no reason she's Laura and Steele, that's an exposition thing. They just need to know, well, where have you been staying? Oh yeah, with a friend at a senior's home, but I gotta get some sleep.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's funny. She shows her the matchbook and asks if she brought it home from Laurinate. She says she never brings matches home as she's afraid of fires.
Mm-hmm.
Good call.
Yeah, although I do have to point out that she obviously does have a gas stove, so okay, not that afraid of fire.
I didn't even think of that because you'd have to. I will freely admit I've never had a gas stove, but don't you need matches to light it? Or
well, you don't necessarily need matches to light it. So, in fact, generally you don't. But they are a flame. It's natural gas, and they've got an igniter, kind of like a lot of your outdoor grills.
Right. Okay.
They've got the little thing. You push the button, and it goes.
If that goes out though, or something, don't you need to light something underneath it? I've seen it in movies, so I don't know if I
if the gas is still on but the flame goes out, no, you don't go in and light it.
No,
turn
it off and
let it air out.
Then you're definitely going to blow up your kitchen.
Yeah, well, yes. I was working at Burger King once after a year. I worked there a couple of different Burger Kings over a couple of different years during high school, after high school. And there was one time a water heater went out, the flame went out, the pilot.
Oh,
and
that's
I didn't realize that the gas was still on, and I went to light it and it goes. So yeah. But yeah, she obviously had to have a gas stove because otherwise it wouldn't have blown up on her. And so, yeah, they had to have dummied it up somehow.
It could be worse. My dad once set himself on fire on Christmas Day.
Ooh.
So yeah, he so you know how space heaters warn you not to stand near them in loose clothing?
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason for that. So we had one Christmas where it was after dinner and most of us, the bulk of us, were standing in the kitchen and we're talking and we hear this like scream come from the garage where my dad spent most of his time. And for some reason we didn't check it right away. We just sort of kept talking. I guess because my dad was very accident prone, this was not uncommon. Okay. And then my brother was like, maybe I should see what's going on out there. So he goes outside, comes back in, and he says, Dad needs pants. And probably the hospital. So he literally set his pants on fire. Yeah. So sadly, one of our better Christmases, too. So that became the standard with which we measured, well, nobody set themselves on fire, so this is a pretty good Christmas. Yeah, so just watch those space heaters. So next scene, we get Laura and Steele. They're in the office, and Mildred asks if the case is closed. Laura says the case is more serious and tells them that someone is trying to kill her. Steele asks Mildred if she can stay at her place tonight, and Mildred sarcastically says, just what I need on my diet, watchdogging a gourmet cook. At least I would think that if you're watchdogging a gourmet cook, at least there's going to be quality ingredients in the food.
Well, that's assuming that you already have quality ingredients on hand.
True.
But certainly it's going to be, even with ordinary ingredients, it might be healthier, a little bit elevated in quality. Yeah. Yeah.
Because, I mean,
something you never anticipated having or whatever, Yeah.
Steele tells Mildred that while she's busy feasting, he and Miss Holt will be checking out Lornate. Laura is surprised, asking if she really thinks Fumar would leave the matchbook at the scene of the crime. Steele points out, well, someone did. Laura sighs, conceding, and deciding that she and Bill will have dinner there that night. Steele is upset about this, protesting they do their best work together. Laura asks so, and Steele suggests that they double date. Laura decides that's planned lunacy.
Yes.
But Steele assures her that she will love Eloise, and he's going to love Bill, and Bill will love him. And Mildred, with an almost manic smile on her face, looks back and forth at them and says, it sounds like a love feast.
For some reason, that you'll love Eloise, she'll love you, I'll love Bill, and he'll love me sounds like a line from a movie.
It really does. Yeah. And then the love feast comment is quite amusing because that sounds like another type of movie.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So
the kind of movie that might be reviewed in a magazine that has a woman covered with whipped cream on the front.
Or is published by Lord Marchmain, yeah.
Yes, another possibility.
Yeah. At Laura's loft, Mildred and Anna are in the kitchen. Anna brings her some biscuits to go with the sherry, and Mildred hesitates, saying she doesn't think she should have one. She sees them, though, and gives in and says, well, maybe just one. So clearly,
yeah, right.
Her arm has been twisted.
The plate will be empty soon. And so will the bottle of sherry.
Yeah. The doorbell rings, and I gotta say, we've been commenting lately on the fashion choices of these characters. I don't like this dress. It's boxy. It does nothing for her. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I wasn't. The part of it I didn't care for was the. I guess I guess that's what you're meaning here. The top where it's just three holes for you to cross. It's that potato sack look.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, she's not the curviest woman on the planet, but it hides.
Give her something to help her.
Yeah. It hides any curves that she has at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it just feels like a smock. Right now, I like the color, but that's probably as far as it goes. The rest of it just, maybe she doesn't have high hopes for Bill, so maybe she doesn't want to get him too riled up.
That could be. That could be.
So yeah, she sees them, and the doorbell rings. Mildred offers to get it. Laura stumbles down the stairs, kind of shoving her shoes on as she goes, and she insists that she'll get it. It's her funeral. She walks towards the door, muttering debits, credits, and as she does so, she opens it to find a Wish.com version of Mr. Steele on the other side. Like it's like AI created Mr. Steele. You know, he's generically tall, dark, and handsome, but I can see how she forgot him, to be honest. Like he's an what you said, an AI version of Remington Steele, but that's really almost kind of appropriate because so many AI pictures. Boy, I can't talk today. So many AI pictures are just it's a combination of over the top blandness. I guess. Yeah, excessive blandness. Yeah, and that's basically. And Bill. You look at him and it's like, okay, yeah, I can tell. There's no fine tonal graduations. It's all just really extreme and it's just. Yeah. Either way, Laura likes what she sees because he asks if she remembers him now. And it's funny because he must have really been that unmemorable, or she must have been extremely distracted because now she sees him, she smiles and she says credits, which is really quite funny. Well, or it could be that she had forgotten him because she talked to him. Yeah, well, or that she was just so annoyed at the champagne on her dress, but that too. Yeah, she tells him that he looks much taller when she doesn't have punch on her dress, grabs her purse and tells Mildred and Anna not to wait up for her. So she's got high hopes for Bill. Too bad he's not going to live up to them. Yeah. And we see Steele and Eloise drive to the restaurant, and he tells her that she's going to like the food as it's one of the better restaurants in town. She says she hasn't eaten a thing since he called, and he asks if it was a frantic day at the brokerage. She says no, she just wanted to make sure she fit into her dress. It's interesting because Bill is he's just boring. He's bland. He's boring. And then later he gets real creepy. Well, one thing you find about Bill is he's... Oh, God, no, don't start. One thing we'll learn about Bill is that he has a million things we need to learn about Bill. But Eloise is this weird mixture because she has a high-powered job and a very... she's educated. She's extremely educated. But you'd have to be for an MBA in Harvard, but she's coming across as a bimbo. Oh, I haven't eaten anything because I wanted to fit in my dress, which is, I don't know, it's weird. It's not what you'd expect, right? I don't think it's what Steele expects either, because when she says she hasn't eaten a thing, he's expecting this independent woman who's been working all day, and instead she's, oh no, I just wanted to fit into my dress, and he laughs, assures her that she does, but yeah, she's definitely not what she seems to be. The personality doesn't match the expectation based on her background, her occupation, exactly. And then as Laura and Bill drive, she thanks him for being okay with the change of plans, and he tells her one thing you'll find out about me. Is that I'm a wishy-washy person with no convictions, opinions, or backbone. Yeah. Is that I'm open to new experiences. She warns him that Mr. Steele can be a bit unusual, but he assures her that another thing she will find out about him is he's not judgmental. Yeah. Back in the Auburn, Eloise says she's looking forward to meeting his associate. Steele laughs nervously and says that Laura was surprised he was dating a woman like her, which could come off like a really negative comment, but thankfully, she doesn't see it that way because she asks sort of coyly how he described her, and Steele says that he told Laura that she was intelligent, charming, and successful. And then adds, she might be a bit testy about that. One thing you'll find out about me is I'm not competitive with other women. Which, Steele seems Steele seems almost disappointed by that statement, and B, I don't necessarily think that that's true for Eloise, but sure. Here's another thought that I had. She's not competitive, and Bill likes new experiences. I think they're swingers. She's, I'm just saying.
But I'm bumped.
Anyway, so they get to the restaurant. Laura and Bill are speaking to Pierre, who tells them without a reservation, it will be a 45 to an hour wait, despite the fact that there is nobody in the restaurant.
This reminds me of Red Robin. You go in, and especially the last couple of years, you go in, the restaurant is half empty or more, and they still have like a 20 or 30-minute wait to get to a table.
Yeah, the reason for that is because they underhire their staff, right? So then you've got like not enough staff if it does pick up, because you've got 2 or 3 staff that are waiting on whatever tables are there, and so then they make people wait. It's the same with like before you had self-checkouts, when they actually had cashiers in department stores, and you'd have lineups up the wazoo because they would only put 2 people on that night, and then they'd need more. So that's my theory, because I used to work at
let's see, I think there's a term for that. It's called
being cheap.
Poor management.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, I also think that it has to do with the fact that it's not exclusive if you can get in right away.
Well, yeah.
Right? Like, it's supposed to be an exclusive restaurant. It's supposed to be a restaurant that, you're going to pay $80 for an appetizer. So if you can just walk right on in, then clearly it's not upscale. Yeah. They got to make you wait. And I think, too, Pierre took one look at Laura and Bill and thought, they're not our usual clientele, right? They're not. When
you're that empty, I don't think you can afford to be that picky.
Clearly he does think that, though. That's the thing. Like, it's Laura, though, I got to give her points for the moxie, because she says it must be slim cuisine, and that the patrons have wasted away to almost nothing. Indicating, you don't have anybody here. Like, you're really going to make us wait? Pierre doesn't budge. 45 minutes to an hour, and he seems more irritated after she says that. So he stalks away. Steele and Eloise come in behind them. They make their introductions, and Laura says, despite the ravages of L'Orange, it will be at least an hour's wait. That's no good for Steele, who says Eloise is famished. So he goes over to the restaurant book, the reservation book, and he writes Steele 4 in the book. And I gotta think Pierre saw him do it, because he's literally like right behind them. But
if it's in the book, it must be true. It's in the book,
yeah. So Pierre approaches. Steele announces Remington Steele party, apologizing for being late, and he shows them to their seat. So they're brought to their table. Steele pulls the chair out for Eloise, who sits down. And this is why I don't think her "I'm not competitive" thing is true, because she looks Laura dead in the eye and she says, "I love when a man does that, don't you?" Which Bill did not. She just sat down, right? And Laura responds with, "Not really." And I gotta say, I'm with Laura on this one. I'm not a fan either. I find it awkward. I don't know.
Well, you just have trouble getting into the chair after somebody's pulled it out for you? Or?
I just find it awkward, like walking towards a chair and then somebody pulling it out for me. And then you sit down and you have to do one of two things. Like you're either going to have to lift the chair up yourself and move it forward, so that, because I'm short, I can't reach the table. Or what they're going to move it for you. I don't know. To me, it just seems awkward.
Well, it's considered respectful, or at least it used to be. Now, women just don't want respect.
No, not the case. I just think it's also somewhat, and this might be just me, but it feels like stuff like that is also somewhat infantilizing, because you wouldn't do that the other way around. I don't need to pull a chair out for a guy. He can sit. He's got 2 feet. He knows how to seat himself, right? So I don't know. Same with doors. Like, to me, whoever gets to the door opens the door for everybody else. It doesn't matter whether you're a man, a woman, or, a dog. Like, if you get there first, you open the door. But going out of your way to open the door feels like, well, yeah, I could have done that. I'm good, but like, thank you. I don't know. It just I'm not insulted by it. I just find it like a bizarre ritual that has kind of lost its necessity, I guess. But the chair thing I do find kind of awkward because then you're standing there waiting for them to pull it out and then you got to move it back in. But yeah, anyway. So Laura says, not really. But I think she's more irritated that Bill didn't do it. Less so that it wasn't done. Because I think we've seen Steele pull his chair out for Laura.
Well, I think it's more just that she's just trying to dig at Steele.
And she's determined not to like Eloise. Yeah.
Yeah.
And which is, again, I mean, she's the one that initiated the freeze. She's the one that said we should see other people or not see each other. So she had to think at some point they're going to date. He is, and she will. And so, yeah, it just seems odd that she's so, especially since, as Steele pointed out, he's dating a woman that on paper seems very much like Laura in the sense that she's high achieving, she's accomplished, she's intelligent. There shouldn't be a reason why she doesn't get along with her aside from jealousy, which we know is the root of this. But still, like, it's just kind of funny that she's going out of her way to not like Eloise. Steele pulls out a copy of Tomorrow's Food, making sure that Pierre can see it. He makes eye contact and just simply says, "Work." Pierre walks over to the minions, thugs, waiters, whatever you want to call them, and he fumes at the nerve of that man, waving the review in his face. You would think, though, putting aside the fact that the two minions think that he is L'Orange, if he was just a customer that came in with that magazine that had that review in it, you'd think, hey, they're here despite the review. That must be good. If
that was the issue that
right? Like,
had the review for that restaurant, yeah.
Yeah, and it was, because he says, how dare he wave that review in my face. So one of the minions tells Pierre that is Dick L'Orange, the man from the post box. Pierre watches as Steele orders champagne and declares that tonight will be his last meal with dessert on the house. So at least he's giving him a discount on dessert. Back at the table, Steele pokes the bear further by asking Pierre if he is angry about this L'Orange business. Pierre assures him that he doesn't faze him. Laura points out that he's obviously hurt his business, but Pierre insists that their clientele dines fashionably late. It's got to be really fashionable. It's 8:00 already, right? That's when they said that they were having dinner for. And to me, I don't know when you eat your dinner, but I live the life of a 95-year-old woman. We eat dinner around 5, so 8 seems late to me for dinner.
Yes, very late to me.
Okay,
5 o'clock, 4:30.
Yeah, okay. It's not just me. Because, I have a small child, too. Like, we start getting her ready for bed at 8, so. But even still, even if that wasn't the case, like, it's just, I don't know, I'm hungry. I'm hungry earlier than that, so.
I only had lunch at 11:30. I mean, come on.
Right, like, what are we supposed to do, starve? Yeah, so Steele opens the menu, and he does the thing, like I said, the chair thing doesn't really irritate me. I just find it awkward. But this I would leave. This would tick me right off. Because he opens up the menu and basically just starts ordering for everybody.
Yeah.
Right? He orders the baby clams and saffron butter, the warm lobster salad with garlic crouton and lamb's lettuce, the fricassee of tiny shrimps and scallops, and the oysters.
Isn't that redundant?
Tiny
strips.
Yeah. Yeah, there is nothing more irritating than an overbearing, and I'm not even going to say guy, but it mostly is, but like, I'm sure there's women like this as well who think they know everything there is to know about gourmet food, and they're just going to impart that on you by ordering your food for you. And no. Sorry, Steele. I don't care how pretty you are. I would leave. And Laura, irritated, suggests that not everyone might want that. And Eloise says, whatever Remy orders is fine with me.
Remy, I hate that. Remy.
I hate it.
Remy?
No. I could handle Rem, because in fan fiction, I've seen Rem used. I could handle that. It's not maybe my favorite, but I get that you might not want to have if she did start calling him by a first name, if they got married, you wouldn't call your husband Mr. Steele all the time. So I could see that short form, but Remy is just no.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Laura looks to Bill for backup, but he says, one thing you'll learn about me is that I'm flexible. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that the word
and apparently, like that's the French word for no backbone, I guess.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't care. And also, I'm not super duper familiar with French food, but is it all seafood? Because that's all he's ordered: baby clams, warm lobster,
I don't think it is.
tiny shrimps and oysters. Like I get, like you'd have seafood restaurants in France, I'm sure, but I don't normally associate French food with seafood.
Yeah, I mean, there's snails, escargot, which is not really seafood. That's gutter after the rain food.
Fair.
I presume that they eat like beef and chicken.
Well, they do. He's got meatloaf on the menu. Boeuf l'ornate.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Right.
That's
so
true.
I guess Steele's just
maybe
in a
Steele's just on a seafood kick. Yeah.
Steele asks Pierre if L'Orange were to walk in right now if he would know him. Pierre says yes, adding he's very droll and his sense of humor is beyond comprehension. Pierre, master of the sarcastic insult.
Yes.
As he leaves, Steele comments that he's almost turned burgundy, but if he planted the bomb, he would probably be more circumspect. Eloise comments that Remy's work is so interesting. Laura grits her teeth and says, Remy's work certainly is.
You know. Yeah, as a character, she is a little bit inconsistent.
She really is.
They should have either gone one way or the other. Either she's brilliant and she gives Steele a run for his money because she's competitive with him, or just go totally blonde, airhead, IQ of 3. Just one or the other. Don't do this. No. Okay.
Well, and the problem is that we don't ever really know much more about her character because we don't see her beyond this scene, right? But like, if I were to take a guess, if I were to twist myself into a pretzel trying to justify it, I would assume that if you've got an MBA from Harvard and you're working in a stock brokerage, maybe she behaves this way because she feels that men would be intimidated by her career and her achievements, so she kind of goes the complete opposite direction and becomes this simpering fool who allows him to order for her and basically throws herself all over him. Remy's work is so interesting. That's the only logic I can come up with, because she can't be dumb. She's not dumb. She's got an MBA from Harvard. She's not dumb. So
unless she got it from some other Harvard that you find in the back of a magazine.
Yeah, because I mean, I do know. I've seen examples in film and television of women who downplay their accomplishments so they don't intimidate men. But I mean, I don't know that would be. I don't know anybody in real life that's actually ever done that, because why would you? I don't.
Yeah, why would you?
If you're dating somebody who's going to be intimidated by your accomplishments, then that's their problem.
That relationship's in trouble already.
You probably shouldn't be dating them. So
yeah, that relationship's in trouble already.
And we've seen enough of Steele to know that wouldn't deter him at all. In fact, it's kind of a turn on for him. So yeah. So Steele looks a little bit uncomfortable. Then turns the conversation to Bill, asking how the accounting game is. And Bill adds another thing we'll learn about him is that my work comes second. The first is getting in touch with myself. Yeah, I'm gonna say it. I think Bill's gay. He's gay. Like,
okay.
He's in touch with his feelings. I don't know. He's in the 80s version. I'm not insulting. They're playing him off like a stereotype, but.
Well, he definitely is. I guess the stereotype that I would think of would be just that he's a wimp who is just trying to get in good with a woman by saying anything he thinks they want to hear.
Yeah, they're both kind of doing the same thing, I guess, then, just different versions of it, right? Because he's I'm flexible. I don't mind. Whatever you want, kind of thing. And then Eloise is doing the same thing, and it's irritating in both respects.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah,
it's not.
It's not attractive.
No, it really isn't. Steele makes a joke about his phone not working, and Bill says he likes a guy with a sense of humor. Laura
One thing you learned about me, I like a guy.
Yeah. Laura's beginning to get annoyed with Bill. And before she says anything, Michael Fleming approaches, saying that Phyllis sent him and is asking if they've really found Dick LaRange. They take him to the side, and Laura tells him that they've found him, but he can't come out of hiding yet. Fleming says they need his reviews, but Laura tells him someone is trying to kill him. Once they find that person, LaRange can come back out. She insists they're taking good care of him. Fleming, a little put out, decides to get something to eat, asking Pierre if they have anything plain. He says, whatever Monsieur wishes. What happened to the hour-long wait?
Well, maybe he knows him, recognizes him, and figures that...
yeah, maybe.
Him I can butter up. Him I can slide into a seat without a wait, because that might help me.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. We see Pierre delivering the main dish, which Steele announces in turn: the green pasta with the red sauce, the black pasta with the white sauce, the white pasta with the black sauce, and the green pasta with the black sauce, pointing to each person who ordered it. All of that sounds disgusting.
Yeah, well, I know a lot of the sauces that are black, they use squid ink on them. So that in itself is unappealing. Just to even think about it. But
that's nasty. Oh, no, thank you.
Yeah. This just seems overly complicated for no reason.
It really does. And when did they eat their appetizers? Because he ordered a lot of seafood, which I assumed was their appetizers, because now they're getting pasta for their main meal. Like,
well, yeah. Good question. Don't know. Cool.
The dish is set down, and a glass of water is knocked into Eloise's lap. Pierre apologizes and says he will get her a towel. She tells him not to bother asking for the ladies' room. He directs her there, and a minute later comes up and asks if one of them owns a red Datsun Z. Bill, looking pleased with himself, says he does. The Datsun.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't heard of that car in a while.
I think Datsun or the Z specifically?
The Datsun in general.
That's because now they're Nissan.
Yeah, I did know that, but
yeah. I'm trying to think when that change happened. I think the change on that happened like in the 90s or the 2000s. But yeah, Datsun became Nissan. The Z was a series of cars. I think they still produce the Z series of cars. It's a sports car, for anybody who's not familiar with it. A sports car with a really long front end and a really short back end. And it looks kind of weird, but it was... especially back then, this was a popular sports car.
Yeah, and all I remember about the Datsun is my dad making, and I don't even remember the beginning of the joke. I just remember the punchline is Datsun, meaning Datsun and Datsun. But I can't tell you how the joke goes, so it's probably not funny. But Bill, he's pretty proud.
Well, it really, really was funny. I just wish I could remember it, right?
Yeah. Bill looks pleased with himself. He says he owns one, and Pierre tells him that there's been an accident in the parking lot. Bill takes off before he can even finish the sentence, which leaves Steele and Laura alone together. He begins to eat, commenting to Laura that Bill's a good-looking man. Laura politely says that Eloise is a beautiful girl, which is interesting that she chose the word girl. Like, she's not a girl. She's a woman. She's a grown woman, but oftentimes girl will be used to sort of insult or infantilize, right? So she's and this is, I have no doubt, meant to be a dig. Because
yeah. I'm sure, yeah.
Pierre reappears and says that Eloise has asked Laura to join her. Laura seems a little surprised, but she says, "Excuse me," and she leaves. Pierre asks Steele if he's enjoying the food, and Steele assures him that the food is superb. He asks if he'd like to convey his compliments in person, which this isn't uncommon. It's actually, from what I understand, not that I go to these places, but quite common if you're at a fancy restaurant to ask to compliment the chef personally, because it's fancy and you spent money on it and whatever.
What's the point?
I don't know.
Are you supposed to go down there and give him a tip or something? Just what? I don't.
Yeah, no clue. But Steele, he looks surprised and says he would love to talk to the chef. Pierre tells him to follow him. Steele walks in and sees the chef standing there with a very large knife. Behind Steele,
can we jump into the script?
Sure.
Real quick.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not following up on my script here. Yep, go ahead.
There is a commentary in the script. It's not. It's a stage direction, I guess, really more than anything else. And what it says is, and I'm going to claim this is a hidden movie reference. Just so everybody knows why it's going to show up in the show notes, because it's in the script. It says, Pierre opens the door, holds it open for Remington. All the cooks watch Remington as he enters. Should be reminiscent of the moment in To Catch a Thief when Cary Grant walks through the kitchen.
Oh, okay. Huh.
So,
speaking of the script, there's one other thing that I found interesting in the script that wasn't in the actual episode, and it's a little further back when there was all four of them are still at the table, and Laura says to Eloise, "Can you believe it, Eloise? Your menu and mine didn't have prices on them." And Eloise says, "I was so relieved. Seeing prices makes me feel guilty." And Laura says, "I'm surprised, you being a stockbroker and all." And then Eloise says, "I'm a stockbroker from 7 to 3, Laura. But when the big board closes down for the day, I'm a woman," which is interesting. And then she says, "What about you?" to Laura, and she says, "Oh, once I put away my Derringer, I positively giggle."
Oh, now that's a put down.
Yeah,
that is a put down.
It's kind of a shame that got cut out, because it's a good line. But yeah, I found it, and I guess maybe that goes with my theory that she feels the need to play up her femininity once her work day. Girls just want to have fun when the working day is done, right? So yeah.
I guess.
But yeah, reminiscent of the moment in To Catch a Thief. I'm looking at it now in the script. You're right. So yeah, they're holding a knife, and Pierre is standing there also holding a knife. He addresses Steele as L'Orange and tells him it's time to meet his maker. Steele tries to explain he's not Dick L'Orange, but Remington Steele. He goes to reach into his jacket for his ID, but is told no hasty moves. Pierre adds that he knew Steele would try to weasel out of it like a rat. Interesting, mixing of metaphors.
Weaseled rat.
Yeah, weasel out of it like a rat. And then Steele admonishes him for mixing his metaphors, then picks up a tray and adds his pedophores before Pierre yells, "Die!" and Steele swings the tray at Pierre. He ducks, Steele kicks one of the other men, and turns only to encounter another cook. He throws flour in his face and turns back just as Pierre throws the knife at him, picks up the cutting board, and the knife hits it instead of him. So there's a fun little fight here. He grabs the line cook, he shoves him at the man with flour in his face, makes a run for it, goes around the corner. There's more of them. I gotta wonder how many chefs this restaurant has. Like, I get that they're gonna have a large kitchen staff, but they just keep popping up.
They just keep coming.
Yeah. It's like a video game. He starts hurling plates at them, jumps onto the counter, swings through onto the other side, kicking Pierre, climbs on top of the pot rack, and grabs a light fixture, which conveniently rolls him to the top of the fridge. So, yeah, he climbs up over some boxes and out a small window at the top. Then we see him run down a winding staircase straight into Michael Fleming, who asks if he is sure everything is okay. Steele assures them it is, just as Pierre appears on the other end of the room. Luckily, Laura and Eloise appear just then and begin to head back to the table before he stops them. He tells them both it's time to go and ushers them towards the door, despite Eloise protesting that her pasta wasn't finished. As they leave, Pierre looks at his thugs and says, "You asked for your shares while this man is still free?" As he says this, we see Fleming sitting at a table within hearing range. They insist it was not their fault, and Pierre tells them he must confer with his colleagues before he storms off. Fleming, can I have more wine? So yeah, that's quite funny. Outside, Pierre heads to his car, but he's intercepted by Steele, who grabs him and asks him to talk. Pierre is outraged that after all he's done, and Steele wants to know why he wants to kill Dick L'Orange. Pierre wonders how he can ask him that when he took his money and Stavros's and Radicchio's money to write bad reviews about the other restaurants. He insists L'Orange did not keep up his end of the bet and asks about recherche. And we're going to have a talk about the pronunciation of this, because I'll get there when we get there, but it's
okay.
Different meanings. Steele hasn't heard of this one, and Pierre insists that they paid him to write a bad review about it, and he didn't follow through. He then adds, and you ask why we want to kill you, which, yeah, I would too, because that just seems a bit over the top, you know? Steele seems a bit surprised, saying, done all that, have I? Pierre then says there are no words to describe him and assures him that he will pay as he gets in the car. Steele muses, I'm not a nice person, am I? Now, if Pierre really wanted to kill him, why didn't he just run him over? It's not like people haven't attempted to run him over in the past.
True. Well, you mean in this particular instance, it's because he hasn't gotten to his car yet. But
well, he gets
as he's leaving, he could have,
tried to run him over. I mean,
mm-hmm.
Just saying, if he's committed, he had his chance. We then see Bill's red Datsun driving Laura home to her loft. Outside the loft, she thanks him for driving her and Eloise home. He turns to her and says, don't leave me, Laura. Red alert, Laura, red alert. Get out, get out. Laura is surprised.
You still have that gun with you?
Right? She's surprised by this. And he adds, I've got a problem with rejection. Laura insists she's not rejecting him. She just has a case to pursue. The Bills of this world are the worst. I gotta say, I have not met a lot of Eloise's, but I've definitely met a few Bills. Oh, right? Like these are the guys that, and it's one of these self-fulfilling prophecies, right? Because you get guys who are maybe not the greatest, don't have the best luck with women, and because of that, they become increasingly desperate. That desperation sort of shows itself in this kind of behavior where they attach too quickly and start professing their love on like the second date and, get really upset if you don't reciprocate immediately and then wonder why they're unlucky with women. It's a circular thing where, if you just chill a little bit, she might have been interested. Like if he didn't go out of his way to be so accommodating throughout the entire date and then beg her not to leave him the minute she tries to exit his vehicle, he might have gone the second date. She did think he was attractive. Like, it wasn't like she wasn't attracted to him.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm just not gonna.
Well, I mean, we've kind of had, in the last episode, we had Butch Bemis, who is pretty much the exact opposite of Bill. He's a complete jerk, right? And we've talked before about how a person's personality can change how attractive they are. If they are a really good person, you've got chemistry with them, then that makes them better looking. But if they are a complete a-hole, then it doesn't matter how good looking they are, they just become repulsive. And I mean, I'd argue that the actor playing Butch Bemis wasn't attractive to begin with, but like you can have, it's equally as unattractive to have somebody who doesn't stand up for himself, doesn't express any sort of opinion about himself, and then is way too clingy at the end of a date. Like there's nothing appealing in that.
Well, I mean, if somebody just had their wife walk out on them, you can understand how they might be. Yeah, well, I was going to say, you could understand how they might have a problem with what they perceive as being rejection. But 1978 to 1985, that's, a good 7 years.
Yeah.
So no.
Yeah, no, I agree. If it had just been a recent rejection and they were at a low point, then sure, you could understand maybe that they're a little clingy and a little needy, and that's coming across in a specific way. But I think I think his wife rejected him for a reason. I don't think it was the rejection that caused this behavior. I think I think it was self-fulfilled. But so Laura clearly sensing the giant, she's, I'm not rejecting you, I've got a case. And Bill adds, his wife rejected him, she walked out on him. So Laura starts to kind of reconsider and empathizes, right? She says it's awful. And he says he hasn't fully worked through all his feelings, detailing shock and emptiness. And Laura, rightfully thinking that this was recent, asks how long ago, and Bill tells her 1978. So she's unsettled by this and tactfully says it takes time and he will get over it before she kisses him on the cheek and gets out. And obviously Bill knows there's not going to be a second date because everything in that final exchange said no. The kiss on the cheek, not even I had a good time, right? Just bye. So,
yeah, just get me out of here.
You did it to yourself, Bill. One thing you learn about Bill, he shoots himself in the foot with Laura's Derringer.
Yes.
So we see the thugs' car drive up they watch as Bill drives away before getting out. Inside the loft, we see Mildred.
Did you notice all that junk on the front of their dashboard and the back seat piled full of junk?
Yeah,
are they living in that car?
They've got to be, and I gotta say, in addition to the car being hideous, I think that's part of the aesthetic. But there is nothing more, and not that the thugs are a potential date, but there's nothing more unattractive as well than somebody whose car looks like it was dumped in a trash heap. Like, I get that out. I get that you're busy, but like when it gets that disgusting, no. Yeah. And this is not just men. I've seen women with like horrifically awful, disgusting. Like,
yeah.
Why?
It's an equal opportunity.
Yeah. Gross.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I've had people come to pick me up and I've opened the door and like their passenger seat is covered in food and whatever. Like, oh, just don't. Shoves it onto the ground and it's like,
yeah.
How do you live like this? I don't understand. But yeah, it is. The car was gross. Inside the loft, we see Mildred playing solitaire. She looks up and asks how it went. Laura says, fine. Not a good review of their date there, and asks if Mr. Steele is there yet. She leaves her door wide open. What is...
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. They break in either way, but still... Close your door.
Yeah.
Like, there's people trying to kill the person that's in that apartment. Close your door.
At least try to pretend like you're going to make it tough for them.
Yeah, right? Mildred looks a little surprised, and I guess she wasn't expecting Mr. Steele, and says not yet. Steele comes in behind her, closing the door, thankfully, and asks where Mrs. Dix is. Mildred tells him that she's asleep, and Steele gets her to wake her up, adding that they need to talk to her. Mildred gets up and goes to wake her. As Mildred disappears, Steele asks if she had a good time with Bill. Laura grits her teeth and lies, saying that she was sorry she had to cut it short. Steele makes a snarky comment saying that it's too bad. They might have gotten to know him better. I gotta say, that's a good one. That is a good one. She asks if Steele had a good time with Eloise, and Steele says yes, saying she is all woman. Laura asks, oh, confirm that already. Which... All right, this is the part where I take the pen out because I have a theory about these two characters, right?
Okay.
They are both dating women. Or no, wait, whoa.
What?
That theory went somewhere different than no. Laura found out something about herself after she dated Bill. She just realized that, she's off men entirely. No. They're both dating people. That's what I meant to say. That they thought they wanted.
I hope they're dating people because the alternative might be a little bit questionable.
True. They're both dating people that they thought they wanted to be with, right? Like, you've got Laura constantly telling Steele she wants to know what he's thinking. She wants to know what he's feeling. She doesn't know where she stands. She doesn't like the mystery. She just wants him to be honest, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. She gets a date that is entirely too touchy-feely and too honest with his emotions and his feelings and everything else, right? This is what she thought she wanted, though. A guy who tells her what he's feeling.
We had this conversation before.
I don't know that. I mean, not in this specific instance, though, because Eloise is what Steele thought he wanted. She's high achieving, she's independent, but she's also extremely feminine. She defers to him in almost every case.
Well, I was talking about the Butch Bemis and how women talk about what they want and
absolutely,
and for what they actually go for. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, she didn't want, she realized quickly she didn't want Butch Bemis either, right? But now she's with the kind of guy she thinks she wants.
And she still doesn't want him.
and Steele is with the kind of woman that he thinks he wants, right? Somebody who sort of has the best of both worlds in the sense that she's got a high-powered career, she's educated, but she's also basically deferring to him in every sense of the word. And
see, I don't think that's what he wants. I don't think he wants somebody who's going to defer to him and everything like she did. I think that's not what he was looking for. I think he was looking for what she was representing in his mind based on her background, the paper, the on paper part of her.
But I think that's kind of what was happening with Laura too, because on paper, Bill is stability and reliability, right? He's a personal, kind of like Wilson, right? Wilson worked in a bank, and Bill is open. He's in touch, a little too in touch with his feelings. He's flexible. He's all the things we learned about Bill, right?
Yeah.
But she's totally turned off by it. And Steele is the same. Like, Eloise is not interesting to him because she does defer to him and she does fall all over him. And that might have worked for season 1 Steele. In fact, we know it worked for season 1 Steele because we saw the women he dated.
Nadine
and the one that came to his apartment when they found the dead body, and like, what was her name? Miss Taplinger? Yeah, Miss Taplinger. Yeah. Right? But he's not, like, these women are doing nothing for him now. Like, he's not. And to be fair, we do see a little of that as well when we see like characters like Felicia, not Alicia, Felicia, because Felicia is not simpering and falling all over herself. Felicia is in her own right an independent, feisty, take no crap woman. Like, she's very much like Laura and just opposite sides of the law, right? So we know that he is attracted to that, and he just, Eloise is not doing it for him. Of course, neither of them is going to admit that because they have their pride, of course. But yeah, so
I think it's as much about sticking it to the other person as it is pride. Maybe more about sticking it to the other person. Yeah,
100%. Because Laura didn't even want to go on that date. It wasn't until Steele came in the room that she was like, I'd love to go out with you, Bill.
That's right.
She probably would have turned him down. Like, this was not on her list of things to do. So outside the apartment, the minions are having second thoughts, as it appears they are not acting under their Uncle Pierre's orders, but under someone else's. One of them reasons that they only got promises from Uncle Pierre, and now their new employer has offered them more. They look down to find Laura's apartment, 3A, and the other minion says they need to steal a grandmother for their new employer. I like how it's a grandmother. Like, it could be, as long as you find a grandma, you're good.
That's right,
like, He has a weird, it reminds me of, I don't know if you ever watched Doctor Who, but there's an episode where the doctor and his companion, the one he's traveling with, Rose, they get separated. And he's trying to find her, and he sits down at a dinner table. This is they've gone back in time to 1940s London, where they're during the Blitz. And he's talking to like these homeless kids that have snuck into a house. And he says, I'm looking for a blonde and a Union Jack. A specific one. I didn't just wake up this morning with a craving. So this just makes me think of like, I'm looking for a grandmother. Any grandmother will do. So, yeah. Inside, Steele has confronted Anna Dix with the accusations Pierre made. She's incensed, calling it blasphemy and a dirty lie. She says she never took a penny from the restaurants and didn't even let them know who she was so that they couldn't ooze their slimy charm at her. Wow.
She definitely has an opinion.
She does. Steele continues to press, telling her that they said she took money to write a bad review about Recherche and then double-crossed them by not writing about it. So the pronunciation of this word changes the meaning of the word. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I looked it up because I that certain French words I know, but like not all of them, obviously, because my high school French is my high school French. So I looked it up, and recherche, if it's like spelled recherche, means rock, but recherche means research. And I could be pronouncing the two wrong, but like the spelling of it. So the restaurant is either called Rock or Research.
I'm not sure which one I would rather not eat at.
Yeah, right? So she says that's absurd, insisting she did write a bad review, and she pronounces it recherche. She says they couldn't make a decent chicken pot pie, but the magazine didn't run it. She assumed Phyllis ran out of space and would run it this month. Steele looks back at Laura, who gives a slightly helpless shrug as if they're not sure whether or not they buy this argument. Steele wonders if she's not taking bribes, then why has she gone after every restaurant she's reviewed? She insists it's because the city is full of robbers and incompetents passing themselves off as chefs and restaurateurs. Again, opinions. And I gotta say, I don't disagree. Round of applause, because
yes.
Like, there's nothing worse than a restaurant that uses pretension to sell anything, right? Like they're not
or any business, actually.
True. Because you're not like, and you could have the finest chefs in the world working at these restaurants. The food may genuinely be excellent, but when it's more about the atmosphere and about who's there, the who's who of only, only the elite eat here. I don't care who you've got. Like Gordon Ramsay has a filthy, filthy mouth. Like
the restaurant, and by that I mean the physical structure, the presentation, the decorations, and their attitude about exclusivity or whatever else. That has nothing to do with the food quality.
No,
you
it
can
doesn't.
be at 2 examples. I used to sell, believe it or not, portable sawmills, and I had a mill that I was delivering to someplace in like central Washington. And I mean, it was a little dinky podunk town. If you've heard the phrase, if you blinked, you'd miss it. That pretty much described this town. They only had 2 places to eat plus a grocery store. And I'd gotten there the day before, slept overnight in the hotel, and then went out to get some breakfast. And I found this little hole in the wall. And it only had like maybe 3 or 4 tables and a counter. And from the counter, you could see the entire inside of the kitchen. And I looked at the menu and I went for my favorite breakfast: sausage, biscuits, and sausage gravy.
Okay.
And I could see it, like I said, I could see in the kitchen, and there was one woman running this place, and she made the biscuits from scratch, the gravy from scratch, sausage patties that she cooked up herself. And that was, and it was like $6 for this huge plate of biscuits and gravy and sausage. And it's like, this is amazing, especially for the price.
Yeah.
And it was one of the best biscuits, sausage, and gravies I've ever had anywhere at a restaurant. It was fantastic. And then there's another place down in Portland called Flying Pie Pizza. And you go in, and again, it's another hole in the wall place. It's on, it's like 80th or something, 70th in the section of town by what was then called Mall 205. I don't know if it's still there or not. But you go into the restaurant, and it's a small place, and they've got all this junk hanging off the walls. I mean, posters.
Those are the most interesting places.
They got stuff hanging from the ceiling.
Yeah. Like I find that to be, I don't know, I just find those places really interesting. And my parents used to own a diner, and it was nothing fancy, but the food was good. I should say, because I cooked it. But
well, I went into this place, and I'd seen them listed online as one of Portland's best, according to MSN and they're the Microsoft Network website, as it used to be years ago. I said, oh, okay, I'll give it a try. And I went in and ordered a pizza, and it was unbelievable. It's probably the only time I've ever had a pizza where I might say they had too much toppings on it.
Oh,
they would put pepperoni on it, and I got a combination. They put pepperoni on it, and the pepperoni was stacked probably a 1/4 inch thick. Wow. The sausage was big chunks of sausage that, I mean, I don't know how to describe it verbally, but it was, they were big chunks of sausage. I mean, the whole top of the pizza was just buried in toppings. And like I said, it was almost to the point where you could call it too much toppings, but it was great pizza. And in fact, it used to be that we have 4 kids, and my wife and myself, and we would order pizzas from like Pizza Hut or something like that, Domino's, and we could get 2 large ones, and we'd still have to feed the kids something. They'd still be saying, we want more.
Yeah.
I got one large pizza from this place, and I think we had some pieces left over.
Wow.
I mean, that's how big. And it was great. And it was not terribly expensive. And it wasn't a high-end fancy place.
Yeah.
The quality of the food doesn't have anything to do with the quality of the presentation. I hate that word in restaurants, presentation. Just bring me the food.
Put it on the plate.
That's right.
I used to be in prior to the pandemic, I used to be in a dinner club, and like it sort of spawned itself from our book club. We were in a book club, and we met every once a month at the same pub in the city, and it was a good pub. It had some nice like stuff on the menu, but we started to talk about how we wouldn't mind seeing other restaurants, like going see other people. We're going to see other restaurants, but we didn't want it to be like we have to pick a new restaurant for this book club meeting. So we kind of formed a different group, a dinner club. And so once a month we picked, each person would pick a different restaurant. And we went to some of the high class fancy restaurants in the city, and we went to some of the not so much ones, and really found some interesting food. That's how I tried gnocchi for the first time, because we went to a Italian place I'd never been to, but it wasn't like super crazy fancy. It was good. And my favorite restaurant, and I'm still upset about this. My husband and I both really like Indian food. Big fans, different types of curries. And in the city, like you can find it's weird because in the UK, Indian restaurants are all over the place, right? And they usually have a variety of different types of curries there. But here, the Indian restaurants, at least in London, Ontario, are kind of more specific to the region and whatnot. And so you often find like only one or two types of curries, and then they'll have other stuff, which is fine. But we found one restaurant called Jewel of India. Now, it is in literally the worst area of the city. It is on the corner of Richmond and Dundas, or Richmond and King, which if you've ever been down that area, you take your life in your hands when you go there. It's not good. The outside of it doesn't look like much. You go in, and it's a tiny, tiny little restaurant. It's not big at all. And it was owned by this wonderful little elderly man who immigrated from India and opened this family restaurant. And the restaurant had been there for decades, right? So and the menu has like every curry under the sun, and we would order from there all the time, and it was amazing and delicious. And he had the audacity to retire. I mean, the man was like almost 100. How dare he decide that he wants to, have a rest? So he sold the restaurant, and we were hoping against hope that the people that bought it would keep it the same and change nothing, because the restaurant was not hurting. If you could manage to stay in business through a pandemic and everything else, and in that area of the city and not go out of business, like, you're fine. It's working for you. They reopened recently, though, and we ordered 2 of the curries we normally order off the menu, and it was awful. They changed the onions they used. They changed what was in the sauce. They changed the rice even. It was just... So now I'm sad but it was the same kind of thing. Like it didn't look like much, but the food was amazing. It was a family-owned restaurant. It was handmade stuff, and now it's gone, and I have no Indian restaurant anymore. But
well, I think Anna Dix's speech here, it's broken up into a couple of different segments, but I think it really says what we're talking about here. And what I agree with, she talks about city full of robbers and incompetents passing themselves off as chefs and restaurateurs. It's the emperor's new cuisine. I'm on a crusade to clean up the deceit, the extravagant overcharging, the ill treatment of customers, and the society that thinks food is good if the color of the tablecloth is au courant. It's just, yes, that's exactly right. It's the attitude of pretense.
As she's saying this, poor Mildred's getting kidnapped. But Laura then declares her, and the Ralph Nader of Quiche, Lorraine, which I gotta say was a pretty funny reference. But
assuming that you.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you got to know who Ralph Nader is, and here's the thing.
Yeah,
Canadians. We get your politics, and we get a lot of your politics. It's always really funny to me that a reference like this will translate perfectly well here, because we know who all these people are. We get all your news and all your stuff, but like, you could make the same comment about, the equivalent to Ralph Nader in Canada. In the U.S., and no one's going to know who that is. So,
well, my issue with Ralph Nader is that I was a big fan of the Chevy Corvair, and he really trashed that car, unfairly trashed that car, and hired at least the general consensus is that he hired a trained stunt driver to deliberately flip the car in order to prove that it was somehow unsafe. And it was a great car. And so I hold that against him. I will always hold that against him. And so, yeah, there you go.
I think she's mainly referring to the fact that as a political person, as somebody involved in politics, and for those of you who don't know who Ralph Nader is, if you're not from the U.S. or just don't know anything about him, I'm looking at the Wikipedia basic stuff on him here. 4 bids to become president of the U.S., running with Green Party in 1996 and 2000, Reform Party in 2004, as an independent in 2008. And in each campaign, basically, he claims he sought to highlight underreported issues and a perceived need for electoral reform. So essentially...
But he made himself famous and popular as a consumer products advocate, whistleblower. He took on a lot of companies and their products for public safety issues, and sometimes he was right, and I think sometimes he was more about the publicity. But yeah, whether you love him or hate him, he made his reputation as a crusader for the consumer goods.
There's a Ralph Nader joke in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, which is really, really funny. And if I remember correctly, the turtles are caught in a net by the Shredder, and Mikey makes some crack. He says, remind me to drop a line to Ralph Nader. I think it's because of the workmanship of the net. But, but yeah, just to give you the idea of how this kind of stuff permeates into our popular culture, right? Because that kind of a joke in a kids movie is going to fly over the heads of almost anybody who's not American, but it's funny. I watch it and I laugh every time because it's just a funny line from a giant mutant turtle.
I never watched the Turtles, but some good kids shows operate on multiple levels. It's just like the Muppet Show. If you watch the Muppet Show, kids could watch that and laugh at all kinds of stuff in there, but they had a lot of stuff in there that only adults would understand because they were, I don't want to say backhanded comments and references, but they were the kind of joke that operated on two levels. So.
Yeah, well, like in Shrek, when you meet Lord Farquaad and he's super short, and Shrek says, "I think he's overcompensating for something." It's just, as an adult, you laugh and you don't tell your kids why you're laughing. It's just, So, anyways, she's the Ralph Nader of Quiche Lorraine, and Anna says, "Well put." She likes that reference. Poor Mildred. Has been kidnapped. As she speaks, they kind of look around and they wonder what happened to Mildred. They walk towards the door. They go out into the hall. Mildred is gone. Laura tells Anna to keep the door locked as they go after her. It won't help. Anna, it won't help. I mean, you could try, but it's not going to work. Outside, we see the men struggling with Mildred, calling her grandma, which infuriates her. They manage to get her into the car as Steele and Laura rush out and see them leave. She wonders why they're taking Mildred. They jump into the Auburn and they chase after them. So after we see the Auburn have to do the longest turn in existence because it's such a long vehicle. It's not in this episode, but there is one where Steele complains about the lousy turning radius in the vehicle.
Yes, yeah.
I don't remember which episode it is, but yeah. So we see the chase take place. The minions drive away and the Auburn follows. He almost hits 2 vehicles, Steele, in order to catch up to them. He has to drive up over the sidewalk. And eventually they reach a warehouse. They're yanking Mildred in, who's still fighting them tooth and nail. I gotta say, Mildred, she's getting more feisty with every time. With every time she gets kidnapped, she gets feistier and feistier.
Sooner or later, you're just going to get tired of it and start putting up a fight. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, and this scene is hysterical all the way around because they present her to their quote unquote partner, and Mildred, almost as if she's forgotten she might be in danger, right? She's just pissed. She's mad. She demands an explanation. Someone's going to pay through the nose, and a shadowy figure tells them that she's the wrong woman. And thug number one says, "This is the right grandmother." And I think she's angrier about being called grandmother than she is about the fact that she's been kidnapped. I really think that that's the worst part of it, right? The shadowy figure insists she's the wrong one and to get rid of her. Mildred's not leaving. She's, no, you kidnap me, you bring me here, I'm not going until I know what's going on, which is also hysterical because, again, they could kill you, but she does not care because, damn it, she's
offended.
She's mad. Like, they don't even want her now? Come on. Right? The men grab her to take her out. Mildred refuses, demanding to know what's going on. And they basically have to, like, force her out of this warehouse. She's fighting with them every step of the way, right? They yank her towards the door. They shove her out. She falls on the ground. Then we see Laura and Steele arrive. Laura notices the same car because you can't not notice that car. Then they hear a yelp from Mildred. They rush over to see that she's been dumped out the door on her butt. Poor Mildred.
Yeah.
Steele asks her what happened. Mildred says that someone she couldn't see said she was the wrong person. She's indignant about it, adding that it's bad enough to be kidnapped, but to be returned is insulting. And I gotta love the fact that, like, this isn't the first time she's been kidnapped too. So she's like, they didn't even, and it's not the first time she's been kidnapped, and they didn't really want her.
Yeah,
because in season 2 with the Blood is Thicker Than Steel, they kidnap her as like a test to see if Steele and Laura can get her back.
That's true.
This is this is a pattern. So she's not impressed. They hear the squeal of car tires. Steele looks over and the thugs are peeling out. Mildred tells Laura that they were after somebody's grandmother, and Laura realizes that they meant Anna Dix. But Mildred, she's still kind of on her rant, insists that she's only 42.
59.
Steele gives her a dubious look, and then she adds, well, thereabouts. But I would like to point out that even if I'm 42, okay? And even if she was 42, you can be a grandmother at the age of 42.
Yeah. You could be a grandmother a lot younger than that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like my husband's sister had a child young, and her child had a child young. So she became a grandmother at the age of 36. So, I mean, she could be a grandmother. It's not common, but it's not impossible either. So there's that as well. But yeah, she's definitely not 42.
Yeah. My wife was in her 30s when we became grandparents. Now there's a little bit of that's not as bad as it thinks. We adopted our first 3 kids, and the first 2 were older at the time.
Right.
So yeah. So yeah, there's lots of different ways that can happen. Yes.
Well, I mean, my brother is 4 years younger than me. He's 38, right? And my nephew is going to be 20. So, I mean, if he had a child, my brother could be a grandfather at 38, which is bizarre, but like, it's possible. It's, it's not uncommon. So Mildred, you can be a grandmother. You're not 42, but if you were.
Yeah. Well, okay. I think she's got 2 things going on. Yeah. First of all, she doesn't appreciate being called a grandmother. And then second of all, she's been lying about her age to begin with.
Clearly. So yeah, she tells Steele she can't take much more of this, saying she loves her job, but people keep snatching her.
Worse, they keep returning her.
Why am I so popular? It's a funny scene. I really like.
I'm going to have to come to work with a travel bag.
It's not a bad idea. They should all do that, frankly, because
that's true.
They've all been snatched at some point or another, and Laura has also been kidnapped and turned, been thou shalt not steal. They got the wrong person.
Or they go straight from the office to the airport following somebody to Ireland.
So they don't have a passport on them. Yeah, exactly. So, we switch scenes. In the office, Steele and Laura are pacing with Mildred watching them. He theorizes that if they believe Mrs. Dix, and Laura adds, and we do, Then someone else is pretending to be L'Orange and soliciting bribes. Laura agrees, adding that they also tried to blow up Mrs. Dix, and Mildred adds they kidnapped her by mistake. Not letting anyone forget that. Laura points out that Mildred can identify his voice, and Steele gets all excited, citing the Thin Man, where Nick and Nora invite all the suspects to a dinner party and serve up the killer as the main course. I don't think he wants to keep going down this road here. Sorry, go ahead, except...
Yeah, I have not seen this movie, and I have it in my Amazon wish list for movies, actually the whole Thin Man collection. But I think in the Thin Man, didn't they know who the killer was before they set up the dinner party? I'm not certain, but I'm guessing that they probably did.
I think so too, but I will also admit I haven't seen it. I've just heard.
Which is a huge difference in what they've got right now, because right now, all they've got is suspects.
Yeah, and then, of course, Steele doesn't realize he's literally walking himself into his grave here, because Laura loves this idea, suggesting they host a gourmet dinner party to apologize to the restaurateurs.
Yeah.
Mildred is shocked. She hasn't caught on to the fact that Laura's not intending to endanger Mrs. Dix at all, because she says, you can't endanger Mrs. Dix, and Laura doesn't intend to. Steele can continue to be L'Orange. He doesn't love the idea, understandably, pointing out that all of these people want to kill him, to which Mildred unhelpfully points out, well, all but one.
Well, he ought to just buy a suit that's got a bullseye painted on the back or something, and just wear it. Or she pulls it out of the closet and hands it to him every time she's going to set him up. There you go. Yeah.
The amount of times that she has suggested using him as bait is pretty impressive at this point. So he thinks about it, musing that the killer is the only one who knows Mrs. Dix is Dick L'Orange, and Laura gleefully says the killer is the only one who doesn't try to kill you.
Yeah.
He's not comforted by this. And I would not be either.
That's not good odds there.
No, it isn't. So then we switch over to Steele's apartment. The stage is set. Laura and Mildred are there. As the doorbell rings, Mildred's dressed up again as the maid. Poor Mildred, she's always the maid. Steele answers it, and Pierre is at the door. He greets Steele with a weird kick of his heels, to which Steele, amusingly parrots back. He comes inside and reluctantly tells Steele that he has a lovely apartment. It's almost like he sees Steele's apartment and he's like, damn it, you've got good taste. Like he's just not, he's ticked off. It's kind of like if you meet your ex-boyfriend's new girlfriend and you're like, crap, I like her. It's sort of that. He asks if he's the first one here, and Steele says yes, but then the buzzer goes off for the bell, or whatever we want to call it, and Radicchio and Stavros come in. Radicchio offers him some wine and tells Steele it's a special vintage for you alone. Poison! In other words, it's poison. Steele uncomfortably accepts, saying no doubt he will be transported. The bell goes again. This time it's Phyllis and Michael Fleming. She asks what's going on, and Laura tells him that they are going to help them cook someone's goose. And Fleming says he hopes nobody uses any rich sauces. Laura approaches Radicchio and asks him some questions. Intending to ask him some questions, but then he asks her if they're serving Iranian caviar. And this is a weird exchange that I don't really get. Pierre says it's $25 an ounce. It's from Iceland, and Radicchio counters with San Diego. What's the point of that whole bit?
I guess,
like, to outsnob each other, or
that, or maybe to try to impress about how knowledgeable they are, that they can taste the caviar and know that it came from San Diego and not from Iceland, or whatever. I don't know. It's kind of a weird exchange.
Yeah, it is.
I just kind of ignored it as a result.
Fair enough.
Can I ask a fashion question?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
What do you think of Laura's necklace with that dress? That just doesn't seem to. I like the dress.
I have to admit, I like the dress,
but I don't think the necklace works with it.
I didn't even notice it. I'll have to go back and have a look. But I guess if I didn't notice it, it probably wasn't something that stood out.
Because it's I don't know what you'd call the dress. It's kind of it's not really a formal dress. It's more casual. It buttons all the way down the front, and she's got this long strand of pearls that comes down to about
That was a weird fashion thing
Lower-
in the 80s.
Was it?
Like,
I don't
yeah, it
remember that.
was. I remember because I wanted to be like, I remember as a kid getting like those fake beaded necklaces, like Mardi Gras beads or whatever, from like dollar stores, and like wearing them around my neck because they came all the way down. That was considered quote unquote fashionable for some reason.
It just
I
that
didn't
doesn't
notice it.
work
but
for me with the dress.
No, I agree with you that I always associate it with being kind of tacky. So yeah, I didn't notice it, but I agree with you on that. If it's, that would be odd. That would look odd. So yeah, we agree on a fashion thing, everybody.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's
scary.
Yeah, hell has frozen over, which means the Leafs will win the Stanley Cup. So she goes back over to Phyllis and tells her that good goose takes time. Laura shoots a look at Mildred, clearly like trying to indicate to Mildred to pay attention to the voices. Stavros still hasn't spoken. Instead, he just winks at Steele, which was never really explained. Laura goes over to him and he says that Pierre tried to threaten him. Radicchia gave him a wine of questionable vintage, and Stavros keeps winking at him. Any idea what the winking's all about?
No.
Okay, cool. I didn't know either. Yeah. Laura asks if the voices sound familiar, and Mildred says the Greek, adding that she thinks his accent is phony, which is interesting because I don't think he's spoken yet. I think he's been silent the whole time. Unless he said something about
when
in
he
the
came
caviar exchange. Yeah, that's true. Laura asks Steele to find out just how Greek he really is, and Steele asks what should he do, and Laura says, well, you're the Continental. They all sit down. Radicchio goes to pour the wine, but Steele stops him because obviously he thinks it might be poison. He has offended that Steele won't try his wine, and Steele attempts to cite a Greek proverb saying, when one mixes the wine of the gods, and he trails off because he doesn't know the end of it. Laura interrupts with salads to clear the palate, adding that they have lamb's lettuce, bib lettuce, and arugula. Fleming says, whatever happened to plain old iceberg? And I agree, but also, what the hell is lamb's lettuce? Do you know? Because as far as I'm aware, lambs make meat, but they don't make lettuce. So I'm gonna Google it.
Bibs aren't lettuce either, but we've got bib lettuce, so it's just, I guess, just a different kind of lettuce.
I'm assuming bib lettuce is like the shape of them. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it looks like a bib, but okay. So I typed in lamb's lettuce into Google and I got corn salad, which is a plant, apparently. Okay, I've done this. I've gone down the rabbit hole. So it's Valeriana locusta is the fancy name, commonly called marsh corn salad or lamb's lettuce, a small herbaceous annual flowering plant in the honeysuckle family. It's native to Europe, Western Asia, and North Africa, where it is eaten as a leaf vegetable. So there we go. That's what lamb's lettuce is, apparently. Maybe lambs eat it. That makes more sense. It's made out of lamb.
And bib lettuce is a type of butter lettuce known for its tender texture and sweet flavor.
Okay, so now you know, if you didn't already, as we didn't. But when Fleming says whatever happened to plain old iceberg, Mildred drops her salad. She hears his voice. She drops her salad in Radicchio's lap, frantically attempts to clean it up. Steele apologizes for her, saying she's new on the job, and then she looks over at Laura and taps her on the shoulder. They go into the corner of the room, and Mildred identifies Fleming as the voice. Laura is surprised, asking if he's sure, and Mildred is, which confuses Laura even more as she says, but he doesn't even own a restaurant. She stops herself there and then says, unless he does. Meanwhile, Steele gets right to the point, asking what kind of Greek Stavros is, which, I mean, that would insult anybody, because...
Yeah.
He leaps up, insulted, and demands to know what he's asking. Laura jumps in, saying that he wants to know what kind of man would send letters to them in Mr. Larange's name, soliciting bribes and then intercepting them. She continues, asking what man could have read each column when it arrived at the magazine 2 weeks before publication, learned what restaurants had already been panned, and then contacted their competitors to write what they knew had already been written. As she's talking, we see Fleming looking even more and more uncomfortable because it's obvious that she's getting closer. She walks over and she's standing right over him, basically. And Laura asks Phyllis why they didn't run Larange's savage pan of recherche. Phyllis insists they never got it, saying she had to fill in with an article on 50 ways to use hollandaise sauce. I'd like to read that article because I wonder if it had anything to do with the whipped cream. That's all I'm saying. She leans over Fleming and asking who would have a reason to divert the reviews for Recherche. She says that she's sure when she checks the tax records tomorrow, she will have her answer. Fleming admits he owns the restaurant, but then that they can't prove he did anything. Mildred says that she can. He had her kidnapped. Fleming jumps up holding, what is that, a cane? A stick? A fire poker?
Skewer. Would that be like for rotisserie type thing?
Yeah, and so I have a question too. Like, he claims that later on, he claims that he is a little further down, that he opened this restaurant, the best restaurant in town with good food, a plain name and large portions. Plain name? Recherche is a plain name?
Well, I guess if you're French, it is, but
well, yeah, because if it's pronounced that way, it means rock.
Yeah.
So he jumps up. He's got the fire poker or skewer thing. He admits to having taken the bribe, saying that he had to because he couldn't make a living at the magazine. He indignantly says she had him rating hot dogs. And Phyllis leans forward, and I told Eric that I wasn't sure I was going to be able to say this line with a straight face, so I'll do my best here. She leans forward and she says, Michael, I thought you loved weenies. And this is doubly funny because I discovered something about my husband when it came to hot dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Because I pointed out I'm not a big fan of hot dogs. We don't usually eat them, right? We were over at my mom's trailer last summer, and they were having hot dogs for dinner on the barbecue. And my brother came out and said, oh, I forgot to get the wieners. And my husband started laughing. Like, he giggled like a child. And I looked over and I was like, what is so funny? And he's like, I don't know. I just find that hilarious. I'm like, you are a grown man. But you say the word wiener around him and he will like just laugh. He's the most immature, childish, like you can't say it. I discovered you cannot say wiener to him. He will giggle like a 5-year-old.
Hey, Scott, wiener!
So when she says, I thought you loved weenies, that's all I could think of. Yeah, so he doesn't love weenies. Or he doesn't love those weenies.
Well, he doesn't like what the weenies pay.
There you go, folks. You can't make a living off weenies.
That's right. You just can't get by with what you get out of them.
No, that's true. Steele accuses him of having used the bribe money to buy his restaurant, and then Mildred, while they're talking, goes over to the drink table as he rants, and this is where he makes the comment about opening the best restaurant in town with good food, a plain name, and large portions. And he's outraged she gave him a bad review, and obviously he was at least ascribing to be pretentious with the name, which is likely why I got a bad review as well. Like, if he's trying to rival these other restaurants, he's literally going to try to be their competition. So,
yeah.
Laura accuses him of intending to kill L'Orange and step in his shoes so that he could make plain food fashionable again, which, ironically, is what she wants.
Yes. Except that he just didn't do it well.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he went the murder route. She went the writing.
Yeah, but from the standpoint of making plain food good.
Yeah, exactly.
Good,
yeah.
Or making it fashionable again. She said that they couldn't make a pot pie to save their lives. So yeah.
Yeah, if he had wanted to make a plain, like good old fashioned restaurant, maybe don't give it a name like Recherche and Anyway, so yeah.
Michael's.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Don't call it Fleming's.
Then he gets sued by the
the craft store.
Craft store. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. Well, actually, there was a fancy restaurant here in London called Michael's on the Thames, which is the river.
Yeah, talking about names and being able to use a name or not use a name. McDonald's was originally owned by two brothers named McDonald, and after they sold to Ray Kroc, they decided they wanted to get back into the hamburger business, and they opened a restaurant called the McDonald Brothers Restaurant. And And Ray Kroc sued him out of business.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that because it was, whoops. Yeah, so he just failed. He just did a bad job. Like,
yes,
Laura accuses him of intent. Oh, right, I said that. Mildred has grabbed the drink tray. She runs up behind him, smacking him over the head with it, and as in most Hollywood TV things, he falls to the ground, knocked out. And she says, "A message from all the grandmothers in the world. Next time, watch out who you snatch." She got her revenge. I love it.
Yep.
So we've got a scene change. Steele's apartment. The doorbell rings. He opens it, and again, fashion. Where the heck did he get that sweater? Old Man's Are Us? Like that. It's okay, Grandpa. Like
it's Is it actually a sweater or is it a shirt?
It's like a sweater vest thing. It's hideous. It's not good.
Yeah. Yeah.
He invites Laura in, tells her that there's enough food left over from the previous night to feed a gourmet army. Laura asks him where Eloise is, and Steele admits that he knows this was supposed to be a makeup dinner for Bill and Eloise, and that she's very sweet and easy to please, but kind of takes the fun out of it. He has to be the first man in history to complain about a woman being too easy. Just saying.
Since you commented on his sweater,
okay,
can I comment on her?
Yeah.
Shirt and pants. I'm not a fan of the belt.
Okay, fair.
But I love the shirt and pants, and it's very reminiscent of what a character
Steel?
from another of my favorite shows would wear. Amanda King.
Oh,
Scarecrow Mrs. King.
Yeah.
It's very. I don't want to say homey because that carries a negative context or connotation for a lot of people, but it's very relaxed and casual and yet still attractive.
No, I actually agree with you that she looks good. It made me think
it's happened twice. It's frozen over twice.
This outfit reminded me of Red Holt Steele when she's wearing his clothes. Because she's got the belt hitched up, right? And she has his shirt on, right? But in this case, obviously the shirt is hers. But yeah, it looks nice. It looks, relaxed. That's a good word for it. He asks if Bill is parking the car. Laura admits she didn't invite Bill. When Steele asks why not, she says she's learned something about Bill. It's a good thing. We've all learned something about Bill.
We've all learned too much about Bill.
Yeah, exactly. He lacks something. Steele asks what? And she says, a tacky mystery. Which, brings it back to kind of being nice, but no, I never liked that comment. It just seems so out of nowhere because they weren't sniping at each other throughout the episode until, I don't know. So they smile, they clink their cutlery, and this is where the episode freezes.
Yeah.
So that's
that's it. Gourmet Steele.
It's a decent episode. I mean, I don't really have any big problems with it. It's a solid entry, good mystery.
Some issues with characterization.
Yeah, I mean, it's a first-time writer, so he might have just not really gotten a full handle of the characters.
Yeah, I'm curious now that you say first time
for the show. I think
first time for the writer.
Wrong,
yeah, let's do while we're
here
tap dancing. Let's look at IMDb and look him up and see where this falls in his library of work. And it is not his first. Actually, he'd been writing for quite a while since then.
No, I meant is it his first for the show though? Because I thought it was.
It's his first for the show, but
that's what I meant.
He'd been writing since 1973, 74.
Yeah, I didn't mean first time writer. Period. I meant first time he's written for the show because he probably
but still, I mean, you'd think that somebody who's got that much experience,
true, 13
years of writing in television would have done a little more research into the characters. But
fair enough. Either way, it was a pretty good episode.
Yeah, this is episodic TV from the 1980s after all, so who knows?
The Mildred bits are really funny, and the show kind of, I do like the fact that a lot of the episodes will skewer something about culture that, people often complain about. In this case, it's high-priced restaurants. Before it was elaborate commercials or, something like that. So it's, I enjoyed it. On the website, www.SteeleWatching.com, we've got show notes, Amazon links, both for US and Canada for the movies mentioned, and also social media. Merch. I meant to make a comment about this. I talked to you about this.
Yes, you did.
The link to TeePublic, where we have some of our designs with He Fit the Suit and ethics and plausible deniability. I don't know how many people are still wanting shirts and stuff like that. They're still there. But when I first ordered from there, the advice I was given, I think it was on the website, was to order a size up from what you normally wear because they run tight. And I didn't order the men's version of the shirt. I ordered the female version of the shirt, which is a little more fitted. So I ordered an extra large just in case because I didn't know. And with women's clothes, you can never tell what is a large, extra large, medium, anything like that. At the time, the extra large fit quite well. And I was like, okay, cool. I was looking through TeePublic the other day and I thought, it might be nice to get one in the green because I had one in the red. And the size chart said now fits true to size, which I had no idea what that meant because
we were lying before, but
right?
now we're really telling you, you're fat.
So I ordered. I thought, okay, I'll order the large because normally if I'm buying a shirt, depending on the store, I'm a medium or large, right? So I ordered the large. The large could have fit two of me. It's huge. I don't recall losing a ton of weight in the last little while, so I think they've overcorrected the other way. So if you are, I'm going to try again. I'll wear it as a pajama top or whatever. But if people are interested, the merch links are still there. If you're going to try again with the clothes, maybe order a size down from what you normally order because at least in my experience, it was too big. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say there. Yeah. Social media resources.
Yes. On the website, you can get the link to, well, first of all, follow the podcast. So if you have a friend that's listening or interested and they don't listen and follow the show already, just send them to the website. They can subscribe there in their favorite podcast player, regardless of what platform they use. You'll find links to the official SteeleWatching Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages, and as well as a link to the Steele Watchers fan group on Facebook.
Officially unofficial. Yes.
Yes.
Join us. So the next episode?
Yeah.
Stronger Than Steel.
This is a fun one.
Yeah, it is.
This is a fun one. So, okay. Well, I've got nothing else.
No, me either. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Hey, everybody. Eric and Sara here. Just a quick announcement to let you know that yes, we do appreciate everyone who listens, participates, and supports the podcast in whatever way you do. But we wanted to give an extra thank you to those who are so graciously giving to be monthly financial supporters.
We are making live streams of our recording sessions available to anyone who is a monthly financial supporter. So not only can you watch us live as we record our podcast episodes, you will be getting access to the raw, behind-the-scenes, unedited version of episodes before they get officially released.
And Sara, does that include our mistakes and screw-ups and our humiliating? Yes,
every single one of them.
Every single one of them, yes. So again, this is just an extra thank you to those who are going above and beyond. But whether you choose to become a monthly financial supporter or not, we still love you. We want to say we thank you for your support, your encouragement, and your feedback.
If you want to become a monthly financial supporter, please visit our website at www.SteeleWatching.com to sign up.